My sister committed bank fraud to rob me, but my parents blamed me for reporting her. So I told them, next time she breaks the law, call the cops. I'm Jack, a 30-year-old man, and anyone who knows me would tell you that I've been living alone since the age of 18. I paid for my own college, worked my tail off, and never asked my parents for assistance. But evidently that doesn't mean I can live my life in peace. No. It simply means I am the family problem solution by default. It all began when my mother called me out of nowhere. My mother, Carol, no longer initiates a conversation. She's not the type of mother that calls to ask about your day or what you ate for lunch. If she calls, it means something is wrong and she needs me to repair it. So when her name came up, I knew it wasn't going to be good. I responded, and she rushed right into awkward small talk, which is not her thing. Hey Jack, how's work? Still doing finance stuff? She inquired, as if she hadn't ignored my job description for the last decade. I played along out of curiosity. Yeah, Mom, I'm still doing finance. What's up? That is when she dropped it. Your sister is in trouble. Now, I'd like to say I was astonished, but I wasn't. My sister Karen, a 27-year-old woman, has a history of causing havoc and expecting others to clean up. Her messes haven't just been little inconveniences throughout the years, they've become full-fledged disasters that always seem to fall on my shoulders. Take the time she stole my car without my permission, just to smash it while texting. She contacted me in a panic, sobbing because she didn't know what to do. And like an idiot, I dropped everything to aid her. I dealt with the insurance, paid the deductible, and even let her off the hook for the damage she caused because she promised she would never do it again. But she did. Or the time she persuaded me to co-sign for her first apartment since she simply needed a little help getting started. 3 months later, she stopped paying rent, avoided the landlord, and left me to deal with the consequences. I spent months attempting to repair my credit while she moved back home with our parents and pretended it was no big issue. Not only does she make mistakes, but she is never held accountable. Every time she makes a mistake, someone, usually me, needs to jump in to correct it while she plays the victim. And the worst part? She doesn't even express gratitude. It's as if she believes the world owes her a safety net. So, when my mother called to tell me Karen was in danger, I didn't worry or become concerned. I was tired of being dragged into her mess, of always being the one who had to face the consequences of her carelessness. To be honest, I was astonished it had taken so long for something huge to happen. I sighed, fearing what I was about to hear. What kind of trouble? I inquired. I didn't ask because I wanted to help. I asked because I wanted to know how horrible this one would be. Then she struck me with it. Karen had accumulated $43,500 in debt. $40,000? I had to repeat that in my brain simply to get it. How does one reach that point? Apparently, she had spent money she didn't have again. This time, however, she owed more than just credit card companies. She'd borrowed money from some unscrupulous folks, the kind you don't just ignore as the bills build up. And now they were after her. And my mother's clever solution to the mess? Of course it's me. Why wouldn't it be? In her eyes I was the one with a solid career, the responsible sibling, the man who could always be relied on to fix the unfixable. It didn't matter that Karen made mistakes. That was not the issue. The problem was that I didn't hurry in to help her. You need to help her, she continued, as if my job as the family ATM was already determined. I sat there for a second, allowing it to sink in. I inquired. How exactly can I help? You've done so well for yourself, Jack. You can pay it off for her, she remarked casually, as if she were inviting me to stop by and get some takeout. I let out a quick laugh, not because it was humorous, but because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mom, I didn't borrow that money. Why should this be my responsibility? I'm not paying anything. The stillness that followed felt weighty, as if she was contemplating the fact that I had simply declined. Then she snapped, going into full guilt mode. She's your sister. Family helps each other. Do you want her to get hurt? Is that what you want? Her statements were quick, almost frantic, as if she couldn't believe I wasn't instantly leaping in to help Karen. It was not a request, but an allegation. As if my refusal was the true issue, not Karen's decisions. I took a big breath, hoping not to lose it. Mom, I've helped her before multiple times. And what does she do? Blow it all on designer bags, fancy vacations, and God knows what else. She doesn't take responsibility for anything because you and Dad have always bailed her out. I'm not doing it this time. However, it appears that logic did not register. She's struggling, Jack, she said back. She's not like you. She's not strong enough to handle this. Struggling? I asked again. She's reckless. She spends money she doesn't have, and now she's in deep with some shady people, and instead of dealing with it herself she's expecting me to swoop in and clean up her mess again. She's your sister, Mom snapped. Family looks out for each other. No, Mom, I replied, my voice firm. Families don't take advantage of each other. This isn't me turning my back on Karen. This is me refusing to enable her bad decisions. She needs to grow up and face the consequences for once. Mom was not having it. Do you want her to get hurt, Jack? Do you want that on your conscience? Look, I am not heartless. I do not want anything awful to happen to Karen. But let's be honest. She's an adult. A 27-year-old adult who understood exactly what she was getting herself into when she borrowed the money. That's exactly what I told my mother. But she wouldn't listen. She's not as strong as you, Jack, she said. You've always had it together, and she hasn't. You can afford to help her. It's the least you can do, after all we've done for you. I responded. Done for me? Like what? Making me pay rent the minute I turned 18? Refusing to help with my college tuition? Yeah, thanks for all that support, Mom. She fell silent for a moment, but then she returned swinging. If you don't help, we'll have no choice but to cut you off. Do you want that? I couldn't help laughing. Cut me off from what? You don't support me. I've been on my own for over a decade. Your threats don't work on me. With that, I hung up. After that day they all went silent. And while I wish I could tell you that was the end of it, it was only the beginning. The silence did not last long. I believe I misjudged my mother's determination when she wanted anything. After I shut her and my father down, they changed gears. If the direct approach didn't work, they planned to guilt me into surrender. And when I say they went all out, I mean it. Initially, it consisted of just simple texts, messages like this. I just don't understand how you can let this happen to your sister. Then, as the days passed, they became more dramatic. Do you know the kind of people Karen is dealing with? They're dangerous, Jack. I can't sleep at night worrying about her. I disregarded them at first because I simply didn't have the energy to deal with the manipulation. But they did not stop. Mom, on the other hand, went above and beyond with her voice messages. And let me tell you, she has this ability at sounding as if she is holding back tears when she isn't. Jack, she stated in one, Karen might not make it out of this if you don't help. I don't think I can live with myself if something happens to her. It felt like a master class in guilt tripping. If there were trophies. For this, she'd be a 3-time champion by now. Then my father, Edward, decided to get in. He's normally a background player in these family dramas, but not this time. He left me a voicemail that started off calmly enough. Hey Jack, just calling to check in. But suddenly things shifted. Look, I know your mom can come on a bit strong, but this is serious. Karen's in deep, and we can't fix this without you. You've always been the strong one, the dependable one. Don't let us down now. That remark, the dependable one, man, irritated me. I've spent my entire life being the dependable one, and it's only gained me more responsibility and less gratitude. Dependable does not imply I'm a doormat. They apparently missed the memo. But the guilt avalanche did not end there. They decided to call in troops from their extended family, from who knows where. I began hearing from my uncle Greg, whom I had not spoken to in years. He called me out of nowhere, as if we were closest buddies. Hey Jack. Long time no talk, how's life? I understood immediately why he was calling, but I let him ramble for a while before getting to the point. You know, family's important, he continued in that too sincere tone that people use when they're about to say something they know you'll dislike. And Karen's she's struggling. We all go through rough patches, and sometimes we need a little help. Greg, please listen, I interrupted. Did my mom put you up to this? He laughed nervously, as if I had caught him. Well, she might have mentioned it. I did not even let him finish. Look, I appreciate you reaching out. But I'm not paying Karen's debt. It's not my responsibility. You'd think that was the end of it, but no. The following day it was my Aunt Janice. Then my cousin Emily. They all used the same script. Karen is in trouble. She needs assistance. I'm the only person who can help her. I don't see why they are all so concerned about Karen. It's not as if she were a defenseless child who made an honest mistake. She's a grown-up who spends money like it's Monopoly money and then appears surprised when the bill comes due. What made matters worse was that none of them even attempted to comprehend my perspective. When I stated that I wasn't willing to waste $43,500 on someone else's faults, they acted as if I was speaking a different language. But she's your sister, they'd argue, as if that would change my mind. The worst aspect, however, was the slander campaign. My mother, in her infinite wisdom, decided that if guilt-tripping me directly was ineffective, she'd try to turn the rest of the family against me. She began informing everyone in the family group chat, which I had abandoned long ago, that I was self-centered, ungrateful, and a total piece of trash. According to her, I had forgotten where I came from and was too preoccupied with my glamorous city life to worry about my family. I learned about it when my cousin Caleb called. He is one of the few family members with whom I get along, and he informed me about the situation. "Dude," he exclaimed. "Carol's been talking mad crap about you. She told Aunt Janice that you said Karen deserves whatever happens to her." I was enraged not because I cared what Janice thought, but because my mother was just lying about me to make herself look like the victim. I told Caleb the truth. I had never said anything like that, and he believed me. "Yeah, I figured she was exaggerating," he said. "It's just messy, man." Messy does not even begin to describe it. But the true drama began when Karen decided to join the chaos herself. Until then, she had been quiet. Not a single text message or phone call. I suspected she was embarrassed for once. It turns out she was just waiting to strike. And when she did, it was not subtle. She texted me one night, and it was not a plea, but an allegation. "I can't believe how selfish you're being, Jack. You know I'm in serious trouble, and you're just sitting there doing nothing. You're supposed to be my brother." Selfish. That was funny coming from her. Karen's entire life has been a series of terrible decisions, with someone else cleaning up the messes. I did not respond. Honestly, I didn't believe it deserved one. The next morning, she increased the ante. "You have the money, stop acting like it's such a big deal. Just pay it off, and I'll pay you back when I can." That seemed like a decent solution. As if I were the unreasonable one for refusing to pay $43,500 to repair her mistake again. I did not bother to react. That of course did not go down well. She went into complete meltdown mode, sending me long rambling texts about how I was abandoning her and how I'd never understand what it's like to struggle. And then, just to make matters worse, she added, "Mom and Dad always said you'd come around eventually. Guess they were wrong." That line was different. Not because it made me reconsider anything, but because it reaffirmed what I had always believed. This wasn't just Karen acting recklessly. My parents had been hyping her up, convincing her that I would always be there to mend her disaster. I'd had enough by then. I stopped responding to texts, ignored phone calls, and focused only on my own life. Just when I thought they couldn't get any lower with the guilt trips, ambushes and smear campaigns, I realized I had underestimated how far they were ready to go. My parents and Karen had played every card from their deck. Or so I thought. It turned out they had one last card up their sleeve. And this one demolished any illusion I had about their not crossing the line. I received a call from my bank. Everything quickly devolved into total anarchy. The bank's fraud department notified me of questionable behavior on my account. Apparently someone attempted to gain access to it using fake documentation that did not match their data. They attempted to modify my contact information and remove monies, but the system recognized the transaction as suspicious and stopped it. While the bank could not provide precise information, they did say that the documentation indicated it was someone close to me. Someone close to me. I didn't have to ask about it. I already knew. Karen. Who else might it be? The time was far too convenient. She had just texted me about her urgent situation, and when I refused to give in, this happened. I was boiling inside, forging documents to gain access to my account. That's not just desperate, it's criminal. I could not let this go. That evening, I drove straight to Karen's place, my rage hardly restrained. Of course, I didn't call since I'd had enough of being nice. She opened the door. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. "You tried to steal from me," I remarked, getting right to the point. Her countenance changed for a single second before she folded her arms. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The audacity, however." I replied. "Don't even try that, Karen. The bank flagged your little stunt. They told me someone forged documents to access my account. Do you even realize how serious that is?" She gave an exaggerated sigh, as if I was being unduly dramatic. "Oh, relax, Jack, it's not like I actually got anything." I blinked, surprised by how easily she dismissed it. "Relax? Are you seriously trying to defend this by saying you failed? You tried to commit fraud, Karen, that's a crime." She shrugged, fully unconcerned. "What else was I supposed to do? You left me no choice. You refused to help me when I needed it." I couldn't believe what I heard. No choice? Karen, you had every choice. You could have owned up to your mistakes, taken responsibility, and figured out how to fix this yourself. But instead, you thought stealing from me was the solution. She scowled. "Don't act all high and mighty. Mom and Dad said you'd never let me struggle. They told me you'd come around eventually if I pushed hard enough. I just had to wait for you to get over your little tantrum." I stood there shocked. Little tantrum? That wasn't frustration bubbling in my chest. It was outrage. It wasn't simply her being careless. This was years of my parents coddling her, feeding her delusions, and treating me as if I only existed to clean up her trash. Unbelievable, I said, to myself rather than to her. Do you even understand what you've done, Karen? You crossed a big line. She rolled her eyes, doubling down rather than retreating away. I'm not the villain here, Jack. You are. You've turned your back on your family. If you just helped me in the first place, none of this would have happened. That was it. The last straw. I took a long breath, not to remain calm, but to ensure that I did not say anything I would later regret. I'm done, I murmured, turning towards the door. But before I went, I gazed at her one last time. If you ever try something like this again, I won't just cut you off, I'll make sure the cops know exactly what you did. Grow up, Karen, you're not a child anymore. I did not wait for her response. I returned to my car, my mind racing. How did it become this bad? How had my family become so toxic that my own sister thought it was acceptable to take from me and blame me for it? I knew this was it. There was no going back from this. I needed to cut ties for good. But I knew it wouldn't be so straightforward. My folks were not about to let this go. Karen wasn't about to let this go. And if they thought I was going to roll over and accept it, they were mistaken, and I was correct. The next day my mother called. I did not pick up. But she did leave a voicemail. Jack, your sister told me what happened, she quipped. I can't believe you threatened her like that. She's struggling, and instead of helping her, you're making things worse. You should be ashamed of yourself. I replayed the message 3 times to make sure I heard her correctly. Karen attempted to steal from me, and I somehow became the bad guy. It was so ludicrous that I didn't answer. What was the point? They were not going to see reason. But it didn't mean I was going to let it go. I called my bank and requested that they tighten the security on my account by implementing password changes, 2-factor authentication, and other measures. I wasn't going to give Karen or anybody else another chance to muck up my finances. For a few days, everything was quiet. Too quiet. But if there's one thing I've learned about my parents, it's that they won't take no for an answer, at least not the first 100 times. Don't tell me in the comments that I can just say no since they don't get it. So when I got home from work a few days later and saw their car parked in my driveway, I wasn't surprised. Yes, I am annoyed. Shocked? Not at all. I took a deep breath, parked behind them, and sat in my car for a minute to mentally prepare myself. I realized they weren't there for a casual conversation. They were not coming to apologize or make amends. No, it was going to be another round of guilt, manipulation, and emotional blackmail. And I was already fatigued just thinking about it. When I eventually got out of my car, my mother was waiting by the front door, appearing as if she was prepared to give a lecture. My father stared at the ground as if he'd rather be somewhere else. We need to talk, my mother remarked once I got close enough. I don't think we do, Mom. I think everything that needs to be said has already been said. Obviously she ignored me. This nonsense has gone on long enough. We're your parents. Karen is your sister. This isn't how families behave. I unlocked the door and went inside, fully expecting her to follow me. Of course she did, with Dad trailing her like a lost puppy. You're just going to walk away while we're talking to you? Mom asked. No, I'm going inside my house so I don't have to stand outside listening to more of your nonsense, I told you. If you're going to lecture me, you might as well do it where I'm comfortable. She didn't like my tone, but I honestly didn't mind. She'd already breached every barrier I'd tried to create, so why bother pretending I was fine with it? My mother wasted little time getting into her normal speech. Jack, you need to stop this stubbornness. Karen is struggling, and it's your responsibility as her brother to help her. She's family. Yeah, family, I totally get it, I told them. So let me tell you something about family, Mom. Family doesn't lie, steal and manipulate to get what they want. Family doesn't expect one person to sacrifice everything while someone else coasts through life without consequences. So don't come in here lecturing me about family. My father eventually spoke up. This isn't about taking sides, Jack. It's about fixing things. You're the only one who can do that. I laughed bitterly. Fix things? You mean like paying off Karen's debt? Covering for her fraud attempt? Letting her get away with everything like she always does? Yeah, no thanks. I'm done fixing things for her. She's your sister, Mom explained, her voice rising. Do you know what it would do to her if something happened? How would you live with yourself? And how do you live with yourselves? I responded. You've spent her entire life enabling her, making excuses for her, and throwing me under the bus whenever it's convenient. You created this problem, not me. So don't you dare try to make me feel guilty for not cleaning up your mess. Mom's face became crimson. I thought she was about to burst. If you're not going to help, she replied, then we'll have no choice but to cut ties with you. No holidays, no family gatherings, nothing. I stared at her, trying to determine whether she thought that was a threat. Mom, I've been on my own my whole life. You cutting me off is like firing someone who already quit. She opened her mouth to argue, but Dad stopped her. Carol, stop. This isn't helping. He turned to me, his gaze softening. Jack, we just want what's best for everyone. Karen's made mistakes, sure, but she's still family. Can't you just meet us halfway? I couldn't take it anymore. Do you even hear yourselves? You're asking me to shell out $43,500 for someone else's mistakes. How is that halfway? What is Karen contributing to this so-called compromise? I could feel the wrath rising in my chest, and my thoughts were rushing faster than I could say. Every sacrifice I'd made, every time I'd stood up when they wouldn't, every instance of them putting Karen first, it all hit me at the same time. I pushed off the counter with methodical motions and proceeded to the door. My heart was hammering, but my face remained serene. No yelling. There's no arguing. They no longer deserved that much attention from me. I swung the door open wide and said, "Get out." My mother blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me?" "Get out," I repeated. "This conversation is over. You're not going to guilt me into paying Karen's debt, and you're not going to manipulate me into feeling bad about it. So unless you have something productive to say, you can leave." Mom seemed to want to quarrel, but Dad gently grasped her arm. "Come on, Carol, let's go." She scowled at me as she walked by, her speech venomous. "You'll regret this, Jack. Mark my words." I closed the door behind them and stood there. It was quiet. Finally silence. But the silence did not stay long. The entire issue had been bothering me, and against my better judgment, I resolved to find out what was going on with Karen. Perhaps it was curiosity. Or maybe I just wanted to know how far things had devolved. I contacted a mutual friend who still maintained in touch with her, thinking they might fill in the gaps. "What's going on with Karen?" I inquired. "I haven't heard anything since." "Well, you know." The friend responded without hesitation. "Oh, you haven't heard? It's bad. The people she owes money to aren't messing around. They trashed her car and completely destroyed it. Windows, tires, everything. She's freaking out, saying she doesn't feel safe." I should have felt sadness, concern, or anything. But instead I felt exhausted. She had put herself into this predicament, and now she was paying the price. Of course, I knew this would only entail greater pressure from my parents to intervene and save her. After a few days I still had no direct contact from Karen or my parents, only silence. It seemed peculiar, like the quiet before the storm. And sure enough, the storm arrived. A letter from an attorney. When I opened it, I could not believe what I was reading. My parents threatened legal action, alleging that I had a moral obligation to support my family. They wanted me to repay Karen's debt, and they were eager to take me to court over it. I could not believe it. After everything they'd done, they were willing to go this far. Part of me wanted to chuckle at the absurdity of the situation, but largely I felt numb. This was no longer a family, it was a battleground. And I was finished battling. What shocked me was the sheer chutzpah of the situation. It was almost remarkable. Look how stupid this sounds. My own parents are threatening legal action because I refused to clean up Karen's $43,500 mess. It was as if they had abandoned any pretense of being a family in favor of open animosity. I didn't have to think about what to do next. The first phone call I made was to my lawyer, who, fortunately, has a good sense of humor. When I recounted the scenario, he chuckled and stated, "Jack, they don't have a leg to stand on. Let them file if they want, it'll get laughed out of court." Their threat did not come to fruition. But it was a reminder of how toxic they were, which strengthened my desire to avoid interaction. That they were willing to go that far was plenty for me. I realized I couldn't keep this door open much longer, even a crack. I'd been holding out a glimmer of optimism that we could somehow fix things. But this was the final straw. I blocked my parents' phone numbers the same day. No calls, messages, or voicemails. I went through my social media accounts and blocked them too. I repeated the process for Karen as well. If they were going to treat me like an enemy, I'd treat them as strangers. I also had to inform the extended family of what had happened. I knew my parents would twist the tale to make me look like the villain, and I was not going to let them get away with it. So I called up my cousin Caleb, one of the few family members I trust, and explained everything. "Dude," Caleb replied when I finished explaining. "That's insane. They seriously tried to sue you?" "Not yet," I replied. "But they're threatening to. I wanted to give you the heads up because I'm sure they're going to start spreading lies about me." "Don't worry," Caleb said. I've got your back. And honestly, good for you for cutting them off. They sound toxic as hell. That conversation gave me the confidence to contact a few other relatives. Some were supportive, such as Caleb. But others were less so. My Aunt Janice, for example, was fully on Team Carol. Jack, they're your parents, she explained, as if that pardoned all they'd done. You can't just walk away from them. Yes, I can, I replied firmly. And I have. They've crossed every line imaginable, and I'm not going to let them keep dragging me down. I knew Janice thought I was a disappointment. She said, "Family is family, Jack. You'll regret this someday." "Maybe," I answered, not believing it. "But for now, I'm choosing peace." However, I only experienced tranquility for a few days. Of course, about a week after blocking them, I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I responded. "Jack," my mother asked, her voice shrill and angry. "You blocked me?" I sighed, already regretting the decision to pick up. "Yes, Mom, I blocked you." "Why?" "Why would you do that?" she asked, as if the explanation wasn't so clear. "Because I'm done," I explained. "I'm done with the manipulation, the guilt trips, the lies, the demands. I'm done with all of it." She scoffed. "You're being ridiculous. Do you really think you can just cut us out of your life like this?" "Yes," I answered simply. "I can. And I have." She attempted to argue, of course. She labeled me selfish, ungrateful, and cruel as usual. But I did not take the bait. I simply stated politely that I was not interested in continuing the conversation and hung up. I then blocked the number. Following that, I doubled down on the no-contact strategy. I instructed Caleb to notify me if my parents or Karen attempted to contact me through him, but otherwise, I did not want to hear anything about them. For the most part, he respected it. However, he would occasionally slip in an update. Months passed, and the longer I went without communicating, the more I realized how much I'd missed out on without the constant turmoil. I had a lot more time and energy to devote to the things that were most important. Of course, there were still times of uncertainty. Every now and again, I would hear a voice in the back of my mind saying, "What if they're right? What if you are being selfish?" But then I'd recall everything they'd done, everything I'd been through, and the uncertainty would vanish. Up until today, I had no idea what had happened to Karen. I recently received another call from Caleb. "Hey, just thought you'd want to know Karen filed for bankruptcy." I paused for a moment to take in the news. Well, I thought to myself, maybe now she'll learn to take responsibility for her actions. Caleb responded, "Maybe." But we both knew that was improbable. Karen wasn't exactly the sort to learn from her mistakes. My parents continued their slander campaign for a while, but it appeared to fizzle out. I suppose even their most ardent followers grew bored of hearing the same story over and over. By the time the holidays arrived, I was relieved because I wouldn't have to spend Christmas pretending everything was good when it wasn't. Instead, I spent the holidays with friends from my chosen family, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel as if I was treading lightly. I could just be myself, free of my parents' expectations and Karen's demands. It wasn't easy to cut them off. It was one of the most difficult decisions I'd ever made. But looking back, I know it was the right decision. Sometimes you have to distance yourself from poisonous people, even if they are relatives. And, while not always easy, it is worthwhile. Caleb still sends me periodic updates, but I've made it obvious that I don't want to hear anything more. My parents were still attempting to recover their reputations when I last heard from them, and Karen was fighting to regain her feet following the bankruptcy. I wish I felt awful for them, but I don't. They made their decisions, and now they are dealing with the consequences. As for me, I refuse to be a fool, dancing on the strings held by all of those big shots. I'm going forward, and I've surrounded myself with individuals that genuinely care about me and respect my boundaries. I'm concentrating on my profession, interests, and personal happiness. And while I don't know what the future contains, I know this for sure. I'll never let anyone, family or not, bring me down again. Thank you for sticking with me over this wild adventure. If you have toxic people in your life, I hope this story inspires you to stand up for yourself. You deserve better. I saved my sister's birthday party. She called me jealous and tried to brand my face. Now I'm her court-ordered caretaker. My older sister used to pinch me till I bled. I once used her hairbrush without her permission, and she pinched my arms so hard that I arrived to basketball tryouts looking like I'd been assaulted by a wild beast. What's her reasoning? I got my filthy guy germs on her things. And when I was 14, I became tired of it. It all began when I mistakenly left the restroom door unlocked. She barged in when I was showering and began pinching my back till I screamed. But I was prepared. I grabbed her wrist and squeezed it back, but my tiny act of vengeance didn't feel as satisfying as I had hoped. In fact, it made me feel worse, so much so that I began crying for being such a bad brother and allowed her to pinch me 10 times harder. And don't get me wrong, I loved my folks. But I know they saw my bruises and nail marks. I know they could hear me crying in my room after her attacks, but they never intervened since, in their opinion, she was the social butterfly who kept our family's reputation clean. Plus, when we were at school, she nailed the protecting older sister role. She would take my hand as we walked through the halls. She would present me as her favorite younger brother to all of her friends. It was horrible. However, one positive outcome was increased pain tolerance. You see, I put all my pain into athletics. So by the age of 16, I was not only the varsity basketball captain, but I could also take hits that would knock other kids out. She was a senior, a grade above me, and I was constantly hearing about the drama in her buddy group. She had ceased pinching me as much by this point, owing to my increased size, and all I wanted was a nice relationship with her. So when her entire buddy group skipped her 18th birthday celebration to attend Brianna's, I realized I had to help. Brianna and my sister had been arguing over a guy named David. My sister spent the entire morning crying because no one would attend her party. I spent all day correcting it. I contacted everyone I knew, including basketball players, students from other schools, and several college freshmen. I told them about free alcohol and fantastic music. By 8 p.m., I had approximately 40 people arrive. The party was great. She grabbed me aside halfway through, happy tears in her eyes, and told me I was the finest brother in the world. We even took shots together. She continued assuring everyone that I had rescued her birthday. For the first time in my life, I felt as if we were real siblings. Or so I thought. Because, as it turned out, David was Brianna's cousin, and he arrived drunk as hell with his new girlfriend at 11 p.m. I started ranting about how my sister was so desperate that she had to have her loser brother beg people to come. How she paid random freshmen to pretend to like her. The party dispersed in 20 minutes. She did not speak to me for 2 days. Then, when our parents were at their anniversary dinner, I heard a tap on my bedroom door. That was her. "Can we talk?" she asked politely. I opened up and she instantly threw me against the wall. "You knew David was Brianna's cousin. You invited him to humiliate me. You've always been jealous that I'm your favorite." She was clutching her hair straightener, which was still hot from fixing her hair. Before I could grasp what was going on, she swung it at my face. "You ruined my life." I ducked instinctively. There was a sizzling sound, followed by the most terrifying scream I'd ever heard. When she missed me, she placed the straightener against her own neck. Red blisters were already developing. She dashed to the restroom, and I could hear her sobbing. I dialed 911 right away, my hands shaking. She ended up needing skin grafts. The burn was 3rd degree. When my parents arrived at the hospital and inquired what happened, I simply responded, "Check her phone." Years of texting her pals to gloat about making me weep. She referred to me as her practice dummy for real-life difficulties. She uploaded photos of my bruises to group conversations, along with laughing emojis. My dad's face turned ghostly white. My mother started crying. They separated us in the hospital. A nurse led me to a different room while they worked on my sister's neck. I sat there for 3 hours, answering the same questions repeatedly. The police arrived about 2 a.m. 2 officers, both appearing weary. They asked me to guide them through everything that had happened. I showed them the texts from my phone. Years of texts between my sister and her friends. I'd been saving screenshots since I was 12 to explain why I had so many bruises. The female officer's jaw tightened as she read through them. She continued scrolling, her face becoming darker with each message. My parents arrived at the police station at about 4 a.m. Mom's mascara ran down her face. Dad continued raking his hands through his hair, causing it to stick up in unexpected directions. They would not look at me. Evelyn was the name of the investigator assigned to our case. She had kind eyes but posed difficult questions. She wanted to know about every instance I could recall, every pinch, bruise, every time my parents observed what happened but did nothing. I told her about the basketball tryouts, the shower incident, and how my sister used to smile at school assemblies while sinking her nails into my arm beneath the table. Evelyn jotted everything down in a little notepad. The following morning, Child Protective Services became engaged. Jordan, a social worker, came to interview us at home. He was younger than I imagined, possibly in his late 20s, and spoke with a soothing tone that made me want to tell him everything. My sister returned home after 2 days in the hospital. Her neck was wrapped in white gauze. She was unable to turn her head without suffering. The doctors indicated she'd require numerous procedures and her scars would be permanent. She has moved into our guest room. Mom took time off work to assist her with the bandage changes. I could hear them speaking softly through the walls. My sister would occasionally cry real terrible sobbing, as opposed to the artificial tears she used to manipulate people. Jordan came twice a week. He'd talk to each of us individually, then as a family. The court ordered that my parents attend mandatory counseling sessions. They went on Tuesdays and Thursdays, returning home with red eyes and tight lips. School was odd. Word spread about what happened, albeit the specifics were unclear. Some kids assumed I had attacked my sister, while others believed she had injured herself. Brianna approached me in the corridor one day, clearly uncomfortable. "David feels bad about what he said at the party," she whispered. "He was hammered. He didn't mean to start all that." I just nodded. What else could I say? That his drunken diatribe caused the worst night of my life? That a dumb birthday party left my sister permanently scarred? Basketball practice became my escape. Coach Dempsey approached me after the first practice back and asked if I wanted time off. I informed him that I needed to play more than ever. He understood and let me stay late, shooting free throws until the janitor booted us out. My sister began physical rehabilitation 3 weeks following the incident. The burn had injured some nerves. She had problems rotating her neck in some positions. Our parents were at work, so I drove her to her appointments. We'd sit in silence during the 20-minute drive. One day she spoke up. "I know you hate me." I grabbed the steering wheel more tightly. "I don't hate you." "You should." Her tone was bland. "I've been horrible to you." I wasn't sure what to say. Part of me wanted to agree and enumerate all the bad things she had done. But seeing her struggle to turn her head and wince when the physical therapist stretched her neck put an end to that impulse. Evelyn convened a family gathering 6 weeks after the incident. She called in another social worker, an elderly woman named Ramirez who specializes in family trauma. They set us down in our living room. "We need to discuss long-term plans," Evelyn stated. "The criminal investigation is ongoing, but we need to focus on healing as a family." My sister had to take court-ordered anger management lessons, similar to our parents' treatment. She attended every Monday evening. I'd occasionally find her workbook on the kitchen counter, with pages of exercises on identifying triggers and managing emotions. The probe revealed more than anyone anticipated. Evelyn had interviewed my sister's acquaintances. Several people stated they were uncomfortable with the way she treated me. One girl, Lila, had even saved screenshots of particularly harsh texts that she intended to show someone but never did. My parents had to confront terrible truths. The social workers did not sugarcoat anything. They had failed to safeguard me. They had enabled my sister's actions. During one session, Dad burst into tears, revealing that he had always sensed something was wrong but refused to believe his daughter could be abusive. 3 months have gone by. My sister's bandages slipped off, revealing ugly red scars on her neck. She began wearing turtlenecks and scarves even in warm weather. Her pals began to visit less frequently. People murmured in the halls about the popular girl who had previously ruled the school. We ate dinner together every night as part of another court order. Supervised family time. Jordan or Ramirez would occasionally join us and observe our interactions. The interactions were stilted and guarded. We discussed safe topics such as weather, sports, and television shows. My sister lost her fork one evening while eating dinner. The clatter caused everyone to jump. She bent to pick it up, but halted halfway down, her hand reaching for her neck. The scar tissue did not extend like normal skin. I stood up to assist, but she waved me away. "I've got it." Her voice sounded strained. She was able to catch the fork, but as she straightened up, tears streamed down her face. Mom reached for her, but my sister backed away. "Don't, just don't." She left the table, leaving her food undisturbed. We heard the bedroom door crash. Jordan put a note in his folder. He was always holding the folder during our dinners. Never spoke much, but observed and took notes. The next morning, at 5 a.m., I found my sister in the kitchen. She was attempting to make coffee but couldn't turn her head back far enough to check if she had filled the pot correctly. Water was everywhere. "Let me help," I said. She moved aside without arguing. That's when I spotted the bruises on her arms, new ones. Purple and yellow markings that resembled fingerprints. "What happened to your arms?" She rolled her sleeves down. "Nothing. I just bruise easily now. The medication makes my skin sensitive." But I recognized the marks. I'd worn them enough to recognize what they looked like. Somebody had seized her. Hard. At school that day I noticed her ex-best friend Lexi encircling her near the lockers. Lexi was making angry gestures and getting in my sister's face. My sister just stood there and took it. The girl who formerly ruled the hallways with an iron grip could no longer defend herself. I walked over. "Everything okay here?" Lexi turned against me. "Oh look, the victim's here to save his psycho sister. How sweet." "We're leaving," I announced, leading my sister away. She broke down in her car after school. "They all hate me. Every single person at school thinks I'm a monster. Lexi grabbed me yesterday, said I deserved worse than some scars. Said she wished the straightener had hit my face instead." I wasn't sure how to answer. Part of me understood why they were angry. My sister had injured many people over the years, including me. But seeing her so broken and terrified made my chest tighten. Evelyn planned an emergency session that week. She had received reports from the school regarding rising harassment. My sister sat crouched in her chair, appearing smaller than I had ever seen her. "We need to discuss alternative schooling options," Evelyn told me. "The current environment isn't conducive to healing." My parents exchanged looks. Mom talked first. "We can't afford private school." "There are online programs," Evelyn added. "Or we could look into transferring to Westfield High across town." My sister shook her head. "I have 3 months left. I can handle it." But she couldn't. The following week someone spray-painted "abuser" on her locker. The janitor attempted to clean it, but the letters remained visible. She began having lunch at the nurse's office. I attempted to help by walking her to classes when our schedules coincide and sitting with her at lunch when the nurse was not available. My basketball teammates did not comprehend. "Why are you protecting her?" Mason inquired during practice. "After everything she did to you?" I missed a free shot. "She's still my sister." "She's getting what she deserves," another colleague commented. Coach Dempsey overheard and had the entire team commit suicides. "We don't kick people when they're down," he told me. "That's not what this team is about." But the devastation was spreading. Our parents began fighting more. I'd hear them in their bedroom at night, their voices rising. Mom accuses Dad of ignoring the indications. Dad blames Mom for babysitting my sister. Both blamed themselves. One night, I heard a smash in their chamber. I discovered Dad asleep on the couch the next morning. He has been there ever since. Jordan extended his visits to 3 per week. The court was actively monitoring our family. There was talk about extending the supervisory term. My sister's physical therapy was also not going well. The therapist said that she was forming compensatory movement patterns that could lead to long-term issues. She needed to work out at home, but she had given up. I started going to her room after dinner and making her stretch. She resisted at first, but soon gave in. We'd sit on her floor, me counting repetitions while she dealt with the pain. "Remember when we used to play board games?" she inquired one night during stretches. "Before I got mean?" I remembered. We had been close when we were younger, before middle school altered everything and she believed I was an embarrassment. "What happened?" I inquired. "When did you start hating me?" She was silent for a long time. "I never hated you. I hated that you were better than me, nicer, more genuine. People actually liked you for you. They only liked me because I made them afraid not to." The admission hung between us. I assisted her with the final stretch, watching her face contort in misery as the scar tissue tugged. Everything came crashing down just 2 weeks before graduation. My sister had been doing better by keeping her head down and simply trying to get through. Someone then shared the screenshots online. All of the communications she had sent about me over the years. Photos of my bruises. Everything. The post went viral throughout our school community. Parents began calling for her expulsion. The principal had to convene an emergency meeting about cyberbullying. It did not matter. The damage was done. My sister did not come home that night. My parents contacted the cops at midnight. I drove about looking for her, examining all the areas I imagined she might go. The park where we used to play as kids, the beach where our family picnicked. I found her automobile on the old railroad bridge outside of town. She sat on the hood, her legs dangling over the edge. The drop was not lethal, but it was painful. We were both aware that we were hurting. "Don't," I murmured, gently approaching. "I wasn't going to jump," she explained. "I just needed to think." I sat near her. We stayed there for an hour without talking. Simply existing in the gap between what was and what could have been. "I'm sorry," she finally admitted. "For everything. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know that I'm sorry." "I know," I replied. So I did. The apology did not heal the physical or mental scars, but it was a start. We drove home individually. Our parents were waiting, along with 2 policemen. There were processes for missing people, including those who returned. More reports, additional documentation. Evelyn arranged for my sister to finish school at home. The principal agreed that it was best for all. She'd obtain her diploma, but she wouldn't walk at graduation, another result of that night with the straightener. The house felt different from her home throughout the day. Despite her presence, things were quieter. She spent the majority of her time in her room, working on projects and attending virtual anger management sessions. I'd check on her between my own classes and basketball practice. I'd occasionally find her practicing her physical therapy exercises without urging. Sometimes she'd stare at her reflection, fingers tracing the scars on her neck. Our parents' marriage was dangling by a thread. They'd begun couples counseling on top of everything else. Dad continued to sleep on the couch on occasion. Mom had quit making lavish dinners, so we relied on takeout and prepackaged food. Jordan drew me aside during one of our visits. "How are you handling all this?" "I'm fine," I said automatically. "It's okay if you're not," he said. "You've been through significant trauma. Your feelings matter too." But I had no idea how to describe the shame that was sitting in my gut like a stone. If I hadn't dodged that night, none of this would have occurred. My sister would graduate normally. My parents would still be pleased. Our family would not be under continual observation. The rational part of me understood it wasn't my fault. She swung a hot straightener at my face, and I ducked instinctively. But rationality did not alleviate the guilt. We qualified for regionals at the end of the basketball season. I played my worst game. Couldn't concentrate. While everyone else was celebrating, I remained at home alone, thinking about my sister. We lost by 12 points. After the game, Coach Dempsey found me in the locker room. "You've got a lot on your shoulders," he told you. "But you can't carry everyone else's burden. Sometimes people have to face their own consequences." He was correct. However, it did not make watching my sister suffer any easier. The girl who had plagued me for years was now someone I was constantly worried about. The irony was not lost on me. Graduation day arrived with unusually high May temperatures. I put on my cap and gown, hoping to feel excited about the achievement. My parents arrived separately and sat on opposing ends of the auditorium. My sister stayed home. As I walked across the stage, I thought about her sitting in her room, scrolling through her classmates' Instagram postings about their celebration. Part of me wanted to forgo the after-parties and return home. But Jordan had made it obvious that I needed to keep my own life and accomplishments. So I attended Mason's party. I tried to act normally. However, when someone made a joke about psycho sisters, I fled. I found myself driving home, still dressed in my graduation gown. My sister was in the backyard, trying to put flowers in Mom's neglected garden. Her physical therapist recommended gardening to improve her neck mobility. She looked up as soon as she heard the gate. "Shouldn't you be celebrating?" she inquired. "Felt like gardening," I remarked, picking up a trowel. We labored quietly, planting marigolds and petunias. The sun blazed down on us, making the scars on her neck gleam with sweat. By the end, we were both filthy and exhausted. "Thanks," she replied simply. That evening, for the first time in months, our entire family ate dinner together without supervision. Dad had arrived home early. Mom had truly cooked. We sat in our normal positions. The vacant chair where Jordan typically sat seemed louder than his presence. "I got into state," I said. "Basketball scholarship. Full ride." I'd been holding on to the news for weeks. My parents grinned, the first genuine smiles I had seen from them in months. Even my sister appeared pleased, but something flared behind her eyes. "That's amazing," she exclaimed. "You deserve it." She knocked on my door after dinner. "Can I ask you something?" I allowed her inside. She sat on my bed, picking at a loose thread in my bedspread. "Do you think we'll ever be normal again?" asked the woman. "Our family, I mean." I considered lying, giving her false hope. But we'd gotten past the lovely lies. "I don't know," I replied honestly. "But maybe we can be something different. Maybe better." She nodded, indicating comprehension. We could never have had the relationship because there was too much hurt and history. But maybe we can make something fresh out of the ruins. Evelyn returned one last time the following week. The formal supervisory period was about to finish. We had completed all court obligations. The investigation ended with no criminal charges, only required therapy and supervision. "You've all made significant progress," she told the audience. "But the real work starts now." On my wedding day, I exposed my fiancée and stepmother's affair, causing my father to collapse from shock. It's an unimaginable situation, and even now I can hardly believe this is my reality. Writing this down feels like the only way to process what happened. My mother passed away when I was 16, leaving my father utterly heartbroken. For 2 years, he devoted himself entirely to raising me and my younger sister Claire. Then he met Amanda, who became his wife and our stepmother. At first, I was resistant to her presence. I felt no one could ever replace my mom. But Amanda never tried to take her place. Instead, she positioned herself as a friend, someone supportive and understanding. Over time, she earned my trust. She helped me pick out prom dresses, gave me advice about college, and was always there when I needed someone to talk to about relationships. Eventually, I considered her family. 4 years ago, I met Henry at work. He seemed perfect, successful, charming, and the type of person who could light up a room. What really stood out was how effortlessly he fit into my family. He bonded with my dad over golf, chatted with Claire about her favorite reality shows, and formed a connection with Amanda through their shared love of yoga and meditation. After 2 years of dating, Henry proposed during a family trip. It felt like a dream come true. Amanda was deeply involved in the wedding preparations, helping with everything from choosing the venue to attending my dress fittings. I thought I was incredibly lucky to have such a supportive stepmother. 2 days before the wedding, everything unraveled. My cousin Ben, one of Henry's groomsmen, asked to speak to me privately. He looked pale, almost sick, as he showed me a video he had recorded during Henry's bachelor party. In the video, Henry, visibly drunk, bragged about his affair with Amanda. He described how it started at last year's Christmas party and revealed in excruciating detail how they would meet at hotels while pretending she was attending yoga classes. What broke me was his admission that proposing to me was just a ploy to keep their affair hidden. Shocked and devastated, I didn't know what to do. But Ben encouraged me to dig deeper, so we did. We recovered deleted text messages between Henry and Amanda, uncovering hundreds of exchanges where they planned their meetings. Amanda's credit card bills showed frequent charges at hotels on days she was supposedly at yoga. I even went to the hotels they used the most. One manager recognized them and allowed me to view security footage of them checking in together multiple times. The evidence was overwhelming. It was like a nightmare. While I had been working extra hours to save for our wedding, my fiancé was betraying me with my stepmother. At first, I considered canceling the wedding quietly. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that wouldn't be enough. Canceling without explanation would leave room for whispered rumors and twisted narratives, likely painting me as the irrational one. No, they needed to be exposed for who they truly were. On the day of the wedding, instead of walking down the aisle in my expensive white dress, I arrived wearing jeans and an old t-shirt. Guests were confused, whispering amongst themselves. Amanda rushed over, trying to escort me to the bridal suite, insisting we could fix whatever was wrong. Henry looked nervous but tried to act calm and collected. I took my place at the altar. When it came time for the vows, I signaled to the AV technician we had hired to handle the video screens. Instead of our carefully curated wedding video, the footage from Henry's bachelor party began playing. Every shocking, vile detail echoed through the speakers. Then came the security footage from hotels and their text message exchanges, displayed for all 200 guests to see. The room erupted into chaos. Amanda tried to escape, but my uncles blocked the exits. Henry stood frozen, stammering that he had been drunk and joking in the video. My father, overwhelmed by the betrayal, collapsed and had to be rushed to the hospital. Afterward, some guests criticized me, saying I went too far and should have handled the situation privately. But after enduring over a year of lies and humiliation, I felt they deserved every second of public exposure. If they had wanted privacy, they should have thought of that before betraying me and my family so thoroughly. Now, my father remains in the hospital under observation. The stress of everything has taken a toll on his health. Amanda hasn't returned home since that day, and Henry continues to call and text me, begging for a chance to explain himself. I've blocked his number on every platform, but he finds new ways to try to reach me. Claire, my sister, is staying with me because she doesn't want to be alone in the house, surrounded by the memories of what Amanda and Henry did. As I try to piece my life back together, I'm left grappling with the realization that every happy memory from the past few years, family dinners, vacations, holidays, feels tainted. Were those moments of laughter and connection genuine, or were they just opportunities for Amanda and Henry to sneak around behind my back? The betrayal cuts deeper than I ever imagined. For now, I'm focusing on supporting my father and Claire as we navigate this storm together. I don't know what the future holds, but one thing is certain. At least the truth is out. They can no longer hide behind the facade of family unity and love. It's a small comfort, but it's a step toward healing. Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since I exposed Henry and Amanda during my faux wedding, and things have only gotten worse. I assumed that playing the video would be the end of it, that they would flee in humiliation and I would be able to start rebuilding my life. Instead, it feels as if I've opened Pandora's box. Amanda has emerged, not to apologize or express regret, but to try to dominate the story. She wrote a dramatic email to our entire extended family, friends, and even some of my workplace. She portrayed herself as an innocent victim, duped by Henry. She said my father was constantly working, which he wasn't, and that she was lonely and vulnerable, which she also wasn't. According to her, Henry chased her constantly until she caved in. In her email, she mentioned that she felt stuck and couldn't tell anyone since she didn't want to break up our family. She even had the arrogance to imply that she only helped arrange the wedding because she was looking for an excuse to break up with Henry. The entire email was filled with lies and phony apologies about how she never intended to upset me. Then my cousin, who had taped the bachelor party video, decided to probe deeper. He works in IT and understands how to recover deleted emails. He discovered years of correspondence between Amanda and Henry, going back to when I was still in college, long before Henry and I met. They actually knew each other from the yoga studio where Henry used to work as an instructor. Amanda was one of his frequent students. During my final year of college, when I was stressed out, Amanda became insistent that I try yoga. She expressly recommended this studio and often praised their professors, particularly Henry. She made sure I only attended courses when Henry was instructing, claiming they were the greatest for beginners. Looking back, I recall her asking extensive questions about the classes, whether I thought Henry was a competent teacher, and even if I found him appealing. She was literally orchestrating the entire romance. The worst revelation came when my father checked on our family beach property. He discovered a wooden box concealed in the back of their wardrobe, filled with love letters between Henry and Amanda. These letters were not simply recent. They dated back years. They laid forth their plan for Henry to marry me so they could continue their connection without suspicion. They even joked that I would never notice because I was too preoccupied with my work. The wedding video has circulated throughout our neighborhood. People who weren't even at the wedding witnessed it. Henry's groomsmen began providing additional information about what he said at the bachelor party that were not captured on tape. Apparently, he made several vulgar remarks about having a mother and a daughter. Then additional women started coming forward with stories about Amanda. Two of Claire's high school friends contacted me independently. They both said Amanda attempted to seduce their elder brothers when they came over to study. One of the brothers was 19 at the time. Another member of our church confessed that Amanda had an affair with her husband 3 years ago. My stepmother appears to have a history of chasing younger men, particularly those connected to her daughters. My father was released from the hospital after 3 days, but he isn't the same person. His blood pressure remains elevated, and he rarely eats or sleeps. He spends the majority of his time in his study, looking through old photographs and family recordings. I visit him every day, but seeing him in such a way breaks my heart. He constantly apologizes to me, claiming that he should have spotted the indications. Henry finally stopped contacting me personally when I threatened him with a restraining order, but he has since propagated his own version of events. He claims I'm unstable and overreacted to innocent drunken conversation at his bachelor party. His family fully supports his lies. His mother even contacted me, saying I had ruined her son's life due to a misunderstanding. She argued that the hotel visits and messages could be explained if I only let Henry speak to me. I blocked her phone number. The ultimate blow came when Claire discovered Amanda's diary in a false bottom drawer in her craft room. What she described about her relationship with Henry made me physically ill. She described their encounters, future plans, and how they giggled about their secret at family gatherings. She even told her lover how much fun it was to help organize my wedding, selecting sites where they had already hooked up. Reading those diary notes destroyed something inside me. All the times I thanked her for her assistance with the wedding and confided in her about my connection with Henry, she was laughing behind my back. How did I miss what was going right in front of me? Update 2. It has been a month since my last report, and the situation has deteriorated in ways I never expected. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, something new emerges. The most significant development is that Henry lost his position at the investment firm. It comes out that his boss's wife attended the wedding and videotaped everything on her phone. The video spread across the office and eventually reached the company's board. They judged that Henry's actions reflected poor judgment and a lack of moral character. Because he dealt with high net worth clientele who trusted him with their money, the company concluded it couldn't take the risk of keeping him. Henry was dismissed last week without severance pay, but that's not the worst part. Amanda totally lost it. While my father was still suffering from everything, she emptied their joint accounts, taking nearly $200,000. She also grabbed all of the family jewels, including pieces that belonged to my mother and were intended to be passed down to me and Claire. My mother's engagement ring, her grandmother's pearls, and even the locket containing our infant pictures are all gone. Amanda left a dramatic statement, stating that years of mental manipulation and anguish pushed her to take drastic steps to protect herself. My father's lawyer is trying to find her, but she appears to have vanished. She even emptied her personal storage unit without anyone noticing. Claire eventually broke down and said something that made my blood boil. Last year, after her senior prom, she discovered Amanda attempting to seduce her boyfriend Tom. Claire had gone upstairs to change out of her outfit, while Tom waited in the kitchen. When she returned, she discovered Amanda cornered Tom against the fridge while wearing nothing but a silk robe. Tom appeared afraid. Amanda attempted to explain it as a misunderstanding, claiming she didn't expect anyone to be in the kitchen so late. She begged Claire not to tell anyone, fearing it would split the family. Claire, barely 18 at the time and terrified, remained silent. She broke up with Tom the next day, too embarrassed to tell him the true reason. More details concerning Henry and Amanda's affair emerge. Amanda's yoga friend contacted me, claiming Amanda and Henry's relationship at the yoga class was an open secret. Everyone assumed it was over when Henry moved to work in finance, but it appears they just became better at hiding it. The friend discovered old images from a yoga retreat of Henry and Amanda looking quite cozy, shot while Henry and I were already dating. Amanda's yoga acquaintance also noted that she had a reputation for getting too close to male pupils, particularly younger ones. The studio owner had admonished her several times to respect professional boundaries. This validates Claire's friend's claims about Amanda chasing their brothers. My father has started divorce proceedings, but he is not doing well. His blood pressure is alarmingly high, and his doctor has prescribed additional medication. He rarely leaves the house, save for sessions with his lawyer. Every fresh revelation concerning Amanda's dishonesty appears to age him an additional year. What hurts the most is that Amanda's betrayal extended far beyond the affair. She actively sought to get close to vulnerable younger males in her family. She preyed on Claire's boyfriend while he was barely out of high school, manipulating events to get her way while seeming to be a loving stepmother. I keep discovering concealed receipts from places I never knew existed, a burner phone in her garden shed, and gift cards and notes from Henry hidden in her old books. It's as if she had a secret existence that ran parallel to ours. Some of Henry's buddies have reached out to apologize. They admitted knowing about the affair but were too afraid to say anything. One of them said that Henry would boast about how easy it was to deceive me because I worked so hard. He preferred my lengthy hours since they allowed him more time with Amanda. The entire situation makes me feel unclean, as if every memory from the last 5 years, family dinners, holidays, vacations, is soiled. Were those just ways for them to sneak around behind my back? How many times did they laugh at me while professing to care about my well-being? Update 3. 6 months later, the fallout still. Amanda reappeared in Arizona, living with a 35-year-old yoga instructor she met on a retreat. She originally attempted to challenge the divorce, saying that she deserved half of everything because my father's work schedule drove her to infidelity. Her lawyer dropped the case after my father's legal team produced evidence of her numerous indiscretions and money theft. Amanda received nothing in the settlement other than her own items, including the jewels and money she had stolen. We found some of my mother's jewels in pawnshops. The proprietors were sympathetic to our story and let us buy back a few pieces at cost, but my mother's engagement ring and most of the family antiques are still gone. Amanda alleges she sold them for cash and squandered everything. Henry's life has gone apart. After losing his work, he was unable to pay for his apartment and returned to live with his parents. His attempts to find work at other investing businesses were unsuccessful, as no one wanted to hire him after what transpired. A video of his bachelor party confession went viral on LinkedIn, and it now displays when people search for his name. Amanda left him for her yoga instructor when he lost his job and money. He recently showed up intoxicated at Claire's college graduation celebration, weeping about how he gave up his life for Amanda. When he attempted to force his way into the room to speak with me, security had to forcibly remove him. Even his parents have stopped defending him and are advising him to relocate out of state for a new start. The wedding venue contacted us to refund our entire money. They even wanted to utilize our story anonymously as a cautionary tale in their new contracts, which now include provisions barring unauthorized video displays during ceremonies. My father is doing better physically. His blood pressure is under control, and he is gradually reconstructing his life. He sold the beach house, unable to endure the memory of their affair, and relocated to a smaller home closer to me and Claire. He's also unearthed writings that show how thoroughly Amanda exploited us over the years. She documented instances in which she gaslighted him, such as shifting his keys and pretending he was forgetful or lying about agreements they never made. She did the same thing to me and Claire, quietly diminishing our confidence while trying to be helpful. Claire is succeeding at college, dating again, and feels lighter since she no longer needs to worry about Amanda preying on her boyfriends. She's even reconnected with her previous boyfriend Tom, as friends, which has helped her heal from the trauma. As for me, I am not interested in dating right now. My pals continue to try to set me up, but I need time to trust again. The most difficult thing is not the betrayal directly, but recognizing that every good family memory from the last few years, family dinners, holidays, even tiny moments like watching TV together, was based on lies. I've moved to a new apartment in a different part of town, changed my phone number, and blocked Henry and Amanda across all platforms. Some people still believe I went too far with the public exposure, but I do not regret it. Sometimes the truth requires witnesses, and sometimes the only way to deal with toxic people is to shed light on their actions. To anyone experiencing a similar betrayal, believe your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. I spent years disregarding red signs because I wanted to believe in the ideal family life. Never again. I went into labor on my sister-in-law's wedding day, but my mother-in-law locked me in a bathroom to keep me from stealing attention. A few hours later, I awoke in the hospital, and my mother-in-law begged me not to file charges. But, oh boy, her face became pale when my spouse said this. My husband, Rick, 30, and I, 29, were blessed with a daughter 2 weeks ago. This is our first child, and we're understandably thrilled. We've been quite busy, and we're still adjusting to being parents. It's a difficult change for both of us, but we're doing our best. We don't have much support because of what happened on the day our daughter May was born. It was one of the most horrible experiences I've ever had, and I doubt I'll ever forget it. Even the joy of May's arrival is insufficient to help me overcome the paralyzing terror I felt that day. I believe I would have died if not for my husband's immediate assistance. Despite the sad tragedy, I believe that because it involves family, we should be a little kinder to them because May is the first kid in the family. But I'm unsure, and my judgment is muddled by all these hormones and infant obligations, which is why I've turned to Reddit for assistance. Please bear with me while I tell this lengthy and multi-character story. Rick has 2 younger sisters, Anna and Emily. Anna is 28, while Emily is 24. I have a pretty excellent relationship with both of them, and I don't believe there's any hostility between us. We aren't close because we're all busy with our careers and don't get together very often. Emily doesn't even reside in the same city as us, but we try to catch up and stay in touch through messages or phone conversations. Rachel, Rick's 53-year-old mother-in-law, is another significant figure in Rick's family in this story. While I get along well with Anna and Emily, Rachel is a completely different story. We don't always agree, and I believe she has issues with everyone, not just me. She's the biggest control freak you can imagine, and she won't stop. She wants things to proceed according to her wishes and desires. Her 3 children often accept her requests because she reared them after their father abandoned them. So they strive to make things simpler for both her and themselves. Furthermore, if someone dares to demand anything other than what she wants, she reacts, which can range from disapproval and moping to a full-fledged meltdown complete with tears and tantrums. Dealing with her is challenging, so I try to avoid her whenever possible. Rick gets this. He understands that his mother is troublesome, so he lets me keep my distance and deal with her as I see fit. On my end, I understand his feelings for her despite her domineering nature, so I let it go. She doesn't like me, therefore she doesn't interfere with my life, which works well for all of us. However, things spiraled out of control a few days ago, owing entirely to her actions. Now, I don't believe anyone will ever forgive her. Anna was getting married on May's birth date. It was a gorgeous ceremony, and her husband Jonah, 30, is Rick's acquaintance. He proposed to her about a year ago, and Anna asked me to be her bridesmaid. I had accepted. However, when Rick and I discovered I was pregnant, I had to suggest that she ask someone else because I knew I wouldn't be able to handle it. This was about 6 months after the proposal, therefore only 6 months till the wedding. I was 3 months pregnant by then. I expected repercussions from her for backing out midway, but I knew I needed to prioritize. I was very worried and jittery before telling her. I believed our connection would be strained indefinitely. However, to my relief and astonishment, none of it occurred. Anna was pleased when I informed her. She had forgotten about her wedding for a long time. When I told her I wouldn't be available for duty, she said, "Obviously, I'll be taking care of you." She even pondered rescheduling the wedding since she didn't want me to miss it, as I would have if May had been born then. That didn't happen for a variety of reasons, and she probably shouldn't have done it in the first place. It was a close call in the end, but she remained supportive throughout. Emily became the maid of honor, and I knew the 2 sisters were preoccupied with wedding preparations, so I didn't trouble them much during the pregnancy, which was traumatic for me. Nonetheless, They kept in touch as often as possible and came over to encourage me greatly. I feel a little guilty for not supporting Anna on the most important day of her life, despite the fact that she supported me the entire time. My mother-in-law was the only one who was upset about the situation. I believe Mom was angry that I couldn't be the maid of honor anymore, which caused some disturbance in the wedding preparations. That seemed like the only reasonable explanation, and I understood where she was coming from. However, the antagonism, for lack of a better phrase, persisted even after Anna accepted the pregnancy and my absence as maid of honor. The bride was not upset in the least, but Rachel began antagonizing me from that moment forward. It was strange, but I assumed I was on edge because of the hormones, and she was on edge because of the wedding. I assumed that all of this was simply building false narratives in my head. I ignored her as much as I could, and things were largely all right. During the wedding, things became out of hand, both physically and figuratively. I was completely pregnant, my feet were swollen, my abdomen was massive, and I felt like I was about to pass out. I still wanted to go to the wedding because Anna wanted me there. I had asked her previously whether she wanted me there because I wanted it to be her special day. I informed her that the presence of a heavily pregnant woman might draw attention away from her, something I didn't want. Weddings are for the bride and groom, and I would hate to be the one to take away from that. When I told Anna this, she was outraged and upset. She stated she couldn't believe I'd be preoccupied with such trivial matters and miss her wedding. She said she didn't care about the attention or the limelight. All she wanted was her family to be there for her on her wedding day. She told me I needed to come and not worry about the drama. I knew she meant it. She's not one to mince words. If she didn't want me there, she would have said so right away. But she did, and she stated it emphatically. I felt it was my obligation to be there for her. Despite my physical discomfort, I felt I needed to be present for her on her wedding day. I'm not going to lie, there were a lot of people whispering, but I tried to ignore them because I knew Anna was glad I was present. That was all that mattered to me at that moment. Rachel did not say much to me and glared at me the entire time. However, I was too uncomfortable to notice. I didn't have the energy to cope with her or understand her passive-aggressive conduct toward me, so I just let her be. She might glare all she wanted, I was not going to respond to her. Then came the big episode, which stunned and terrified everyone around me. I started feeling apprehensive just as the ceremony was about to commence. By then, I'd already met Anna. I got up and went upstairs, believing it would make me feel better and that I'd return when I did. Rachel had followed me without my knowledge. I went to the bathroom because I was sweating and feeling strange. Suddenly, my water burst. It was a literal flood, and I began to panic because, as much as I adore my daughter, she had picked the worst possible time to arrive. I couldn't think clearly. Thankfully, I noticed my mother-in-law in front of me. By then, I was crouching in agony. She raced to me, and I ordered her to take my phone and call Rick right away because we needed to hurry to the hospital. She helped me up and had me sit in the restroom. I gave her my cell phone. That is when she flipped. She claimed she'd make sure Rick arrived in an hour after the ceremony was complete since she didn't want me to take Anna's attention. I asked her if she was crazy and told her I couldn't take this for an hour. I tried to grab my phone from her, but she locked me inside and took it with her. So there I was, pregnant, with my child actually on the way, sitting on a toilet in a bathroom, without a phone or a spouse. I'm not sure how I didn't suffer a full-blown panic attack. Thank goodness I didn't, since I'm not sure what would have occurred otherwise. I stood up and slowly made my way to the door. I began beating on it. I yelled repeatedly. But no one heard me because the restrooms were on the first floor and everyone had already taken their seats for the ceremony. I screamed till my voice faded, but no one came. That was when I truly believed I was going to die, and take my baby with me. I was weary, wet, sweating profusely, and unable to speak. That was the last thing I remembered. I'm not sure what happened afterward. I passed out from tiredness. I can't recall how I got to the hospital. I know I did. A few hours later, I awoke in the hospital, sobbing with Rick by my side. It took me a few moments to figure out where I was and what was going on. When I noticed Rick crying, I expected the worst. Everything came flooding back, my mother-in-law locking me in the bathroom, my crying. And I believed May hadn't made it. When Rick saw I was awake, he breathed a sigh of relief and began crying in my arms. I had no idea what to make of it and felt a terrible feeling in my stomach. Then I saw the nurse enter with a baby girl, and I breathed a sigh of relief. I really wanted to hit Rick for messing with me like that. But he said he wasn't toying with me. He was just glad I was okay because I was unconscious when he found me in the restroom. I held my baby for the first time, and I don't think I'll ever forget the feeling. I don't think there is a better emotion in life. Nothing will ever compare to what I felt in those moments. Rick didn't offer me any specifics at the time, which I appreciate because I didn't have the energy to cope with it. I could hear a commotion outside and asked him what was going on. He stated his mother-in-law was outside and wanted to come in to see her grandchild. I described what had transpired in full. I told him what she had done, and how she had put our daughter in jeopardy for no reason. I also told him that I would never let her near my daughter. To me, she was dead. He said he knew everything. When he found me in that state, she broke down and told him everything. I told him that just because she broke down didn't mean I'd forgive her. He chuckled and stated his mother was dead to him from this moment forward, and he was going to file charges for endangering life. He stated that he would pursue legal action to ensure that she was punished for what she had done. When I heard him say that, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. I know he adores his mommy. All three of them do. After the trick she pulled that may have cost me and my daughter our lives, I was in no mood to forgive her. If Rick had chosen her over me, our marriage would have ended. There would be no turning back, and somewhere deep down, I expected him to choose his mother. Despite everything, Mom worked extremely hard to raise them. Maybe I didn't expect him to defend me the way he did, but I'm not complaining. If anything, it has increased my affection for him, if that's possible. I questioned him about the wedding, and he claimed it went well. Emily and Anna were waiting for him to call so they could come visit us. When I inquired if Anna was furious, he laughed and said I didn't have to worry about her at all. She had been smiling with pride and delight, saying that her entire family had attended the wedding and that May's birth was the nicest gift she could have gotten. I had tears in my eyes when he told me that, and I told him to call them right away. Anna, Emily, and Jonah arrived at the hospital shortly after I did. The best part, Anna and Jonah were still dressed for their wedding. Anna refused to pass up the opportunity to snap a wedding photo with her niece. I started crying uncontrollably. It was a truly heartwarming moment. After taking the image, I apologized to Anna for destroying her day. She hugged me and told me I was misinterpreting the situation. I had made her day. I told her about my mother-in-law's actions after we announced the pregnancy. Anna stated that the only thing I did wrong was not informing them sooner. Perhaps they could have put an end to her turmoil. I told her I didn't want to cause trouble, and Emily responded that any amount of difficulty was fine as long as I was safe. Even as I type this, I have tears in my eyes because I realize they love me like family. They saw me as more than Rick's wife. I was a family member. Anna is one of the best women I know. She is so safe and happy. It's no surprise she is where she is today. I don't see how Rachel is so different from her children. It's as if they saw her and concluded that was not who they wanted to be. It's odd, but I don't mind. It was beautiful. Apparently, my mother-in-law was still outside. Anna had informed her on her way in that she would ensure Rick and I filed charges. My mother-in-law wanted to come in and see May, but I didn't want her anywhere near me. Anna stated we needed to protect ourselves from her. She apologized to me, saying she hadn't adequately addressed her mother's overprotective impulses or made it obvious that she had no objections to my pregnancy. She stated that if she had, perhaps the situation could have been avoided. I told her she had made me feel safe, and there was no way she was to blame. Rick was outside the entire time, conversing with my mother-in-law. When I was discharged and returned home with May a few days later, Rick informed me what he and my mother-in-law had discussed. He claimed he had informed her that he would be filing charges and that she could deal with it because nothing would change that. He also warned her she was never welcome in May's life. She was not her grandmother, in any way. She opted to endanger my and my unborn child's lives over a perceived slight that didn't even bother her. He also stated that the money he had been giving her, my mother-in-law was living off of Rick and Emily's money, would be significantly decreased. She burst into tears, stating she had worked her entire life for her children and did not deserve this. Rick said that, while he recognized and appreciated everything Mom had done for them, she did not have control over their life. He said she was in the wrong and that he had been ignoring or making excuses for everything she did for years, but no more. When it came to May and me, she needed to realize she had crossed a significant line and demonstrated she was not safe to be around, especially because Anna had never had an issue. Rachel explained that, as a mother, she understood Anna's reluctance to have me in the spotlight. But Anna overheard and ripped into her. So, we will definitely proceed with the lawsuit. But Rick is managing it because I have a newborn to care for and cannot be bothered with the drama. Rick said he'd handle it. None of the siblings are willing to speak with her anymore. Anna has entirely cut her off, and Emily only speaks with her when necessary. Rick and I are clearly out of touch. I don't believe my mother-in-law anticipated this. Maybe she honestly wanted to protect Anna, no matter how twisted that seems. I am not defending her in the least. But I still feel awful for her since it all went so wrong. Now, part of me wonders whether they should discuss it with her because it feels wrong and horrible to me. I do not know, maybe I'm not thinking clearly. I know if I mention this to Rick, he'll go crazy. He is irritated with her and is unable to look at her right now. I had not anticipated this, yet here we are. Update 1. Well, any reconciliation is out of the question forever. I realize I haven't updated in a while, but, well, I'm a new mother. I've been busy keeping both myself and my child alive. The good news is that May turns 8 weeks old in a few days, and we're all very excited. Anna and Jonah have been a great help to Rick and me. Emily had to return to work but still calls practically daily. May is truly the light in everyone's eyes. They adore her, and the group chat is filled with her photos. There has been no communication with my mother-in-law. I persuaded Rick not to press charges since we had too much on our plates and it would serve no purpose. Rick was reluctant, but he consented because neither of us had the energy to do anything else. When we told my mother-in-law, she seemed grateful. I say appeared, because the woman is indeed insane, and she showed everyone her true colors shortly after. Rick and I awoke about 1 a.m., a loud banging on the door. I assumed it was a heist, so I fled and hid with May as Rick attempted to open the door. I could hear shouting, but I didn't dare go outside since I didn't want May to wake up. It was my mother-in-law, and Rick said she was being insane. She continued to scream that she wanted to see May and that we couldn't keep her away. Rick claimed he had to scare her with the cops before she backed down. She was trying to force her way inside. We quickly notified Anna and Emily because if anything was wrong with her, everyone wanted to know. We were concerned, but in the end, it was for nothing. The following day, she sent us a frightening text. She began by claiming that we were being mean and horrible to her by not allowing her to see May, and that we were punishing her for doing nothing but being a mother. There was more melodramatic gibberish in there, and her text became increasingly crazy. She stated that she had the responsibility of raising 3 children and had to always choose one child's needs above another. That's what she thought she had to do for May's birthday. She did not want May to ruin Anna's day. She conveniently forgot that May was a fetus, and that Anna herself had stated several times that she had no objections to the pregnancy and wedding taking place concurrently. I still comprehended this section. What she said next startled me. She expressed concern that having May in our lives would make her less valuable to her children. When I revealed my pregnancy, she assumed Anna would be upset since that is how a normal woman would react. But when she realized how enthusiastic we were about both the pregnancy and the wedding, she wasn't pleased. She was basically indicating that she didn't enjoy how happy we were together, with and for each other. She wanted us to be jealous and competitive. She stated that when she discovered the due date was close to the wedding, she hoped Anna would be upset with us and that May would not dominate everyone's attention. But it did not happen, and everyone was just talking about May. She said she felt disrespected that a baby who hadn't even been born had stolen her position as the siblings' unifying force. She continued to type while I requested Rick to block her. I told him she was insane and dangerous to me and all of us. I've got a continual headache since I saw those messages. I can't believe a woman over 50 is competing with a 7-week-old infant. It doesn't make sense to me, and it doesn't need to. Because I'm done with her. I'm done making excuses for her actions and attempting to understand her intentions. I don't care if she ends up in hell. We forwarded the messages to Anna and Emily, who are also upset. They suspect she is experiencing a manic episode. Emily stated that she will travel down to have my mother-in-law checked at a facility. I think that's a terrific idea, but I'll remain out of it. This is insane behavior, and I no longer want anything to do with her. Update 2. We have a restraining order against my mother-in-law. She did not try anything else, but we are being cautious. Emily had her tested and met with both a psychologist and a psychiatrist. Everything is okay with my mother-in-law. She was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, but that was all. The doctor stated that there was no underlying medical basis for her behavior and advised Emily to seek therapy. Emily has since made no touch. She stated she would be eager to help if something was wrong, but my mother-in-law is cruel, and she can no longer stand her. I completely understand and share your point of view. If she had a psychological problem, she may have received my sympathies and help in a few months. But once that's ruled out, we know who she is. There is no way to reconcile it. This is why we sought a restraining order. May's safety is extremely important to Rick and me, and my mother-in-law has proven herself to be dangerous twice. Furthermore, she harbors animosity for May in particular, so we must take extra precautions to keep them apart. I believe this will be my final update, and I hope I never have anything further to say about the entire episode. I exposed my half-sister for cheating and revealed my father's infidelity, making him lose everything in the divorce as revenge. Edit. Hello. To anyone coming from those other subs, I will remove any comments on my posts that are harsh and intended to bully me. I've already received some, and I see my post has been shared in other areas. I know the sub since I was tagged by an automod. I didn't share my experience of being bullied or called a liar, so screw it. I never asked to be posted on subreddits dedicated to mocking others because you enjoy bullying others. Get a dang life. Here's a life lesson for you neckbeard idiots. Get away from the keyboard. Did the post get removed? It is all here now. So, I, 20 female, have a sister. I'm going to call her Freya, because why not? She's 22. She has cheated often since she began dating, creating an unending circle of infidelity. Her first romance occurred when she was 15, and I was 13. She introduced me to Brad. Sweetheart. Great guy. 2 days later, she spent a significant amount of time in her room with her study buddy. I was not foolish. I figured out what she was doing. Heck, she informed her friends. She boasted to them about it while sitting on our living room couch. As soon as she did it, I realized she wasn't a good person. She disgusted me. When she and her study partner returned to her room, I took a picture via the keyhole in her door. They were simply kissing, gross, but nothing worse. I waited. The next day, I took her phone and obtained Brad's number. I texted him, explaining who I was and why I was messaging him. He did not believe she was cheating. I texted him the picture and begged him not to tell her how he discovered it. He agreed. They broke up. Obviously. She was heartbroken and blamed her pals for telling him. She never suspected me. Why should she? I was the sister who clung to her, imitated what she wore, and observed everything she did. I admired her. I kept up the pretense. I didn't want her to know what I knew or had done. I hoped she learned her lesson. However, she didn't. The next true boyfriend arrived when she was 17 and I was 15. I'd been watching her like a hawk, waiting for the next boyfriend. Nobody would date her for a while after Brad. She was a cheater after all. Even her study companion didn't want to date her because he already had a girlfriend. That condition did not continue longer than a month. After Brad broke up with Freya, someone informed his study partner's girlfriend that he was a cheater. Weird. Anyway, let's introduce Steven. Trusting, maybe a little dim. He saw the best in everyone. She convinced him that she and Brad had only ever kissed, nothing else. I didn't believe it, but whatever. This naive church lad believed she had transformed after only 2 years. Okay. Sure. After a month, I still had no dirt. I started to wonder if she had changed. Bam. She boasted to her buddies about cheating on Steven. I remained hidden. I needed the specifics. I wish I had documented the confession, but I did not. What I did hear was that she was going to meet her side piece at the park the next afternoon. We were both old enough to leave the house whenever we wanted. All we had to do was tell our mother where we were going. The next day, she stated that she was heading to the mall. I stated that I was hanging out with buddies. I waited till she was a few minutes ahead of me before going to the park. I took images of them hugging under a tree. Kissing. Rinse, repeat. Steven pledged to keep the information secret. He handed her the photos, but this time there was no proof of who took them. She would have caught me if I had taken them up close, but those images could have been shot anywhere. They were in the midst of a park. Relationship number 3. Enter the bad dude. I despised him. He was rude, disgusting, and disrespectful. This one was tricky. He was obviously on the rebound, only a few weeks after Steven, but I got a nasty feeling. I suspected he would be the type to hurt her if she cheated on him. I had to persuade her to end the relationship or have him leave her without blaming her. Even if she was terrible, I needed to plan carefully. I waited for evidence. Do you believe it? They were cheating on each other, with the same guy. I felt calling them out would merely transform them into a throuple. I was mistaken. Bad lad despised the thought of someone knowing he was gay. When he discovered that Freya knew he was bisexual, he fled so quickly that his tires caught fire. 3 down. My sister still didn't know who was exposing her, but she was becoming suspicious. She was ranting about me without realizing it, so I knew. Then she told me her strategy. She planned to tell each of her friends a different narrative and see which one her next boyfriend would get. I helped her make up phony names, descriptions, and locations. It was honestly quite enjoyable. Boyfriend number 4 was not a boyfriend, but rather a guy acquaintance of hers who was involved in the conspiracy. He wanted Freya so desperately that he would do everything to get her attention. She informed friend A she was cheating on 4 with a blonde guy and would see him at the ice cream shop tomorrow. Friend B has brown hair, beach. Friend C has red hair, house. Friend D got bald, Starbucks. Freya wanted me to check out the ice cream shop. Freya stayed at home, while 4 went to Starbucks. No one was on the beach. She reasoned that if none of us observed anything at the sites, then friend B was responsible. We did exactly that. It was hilarious to receive her continuous texts wondering whether anyone had seen someone. She was in a panic. Buddy B had been her best buddy since she was in diapers, and she did not want it to be them. In the end, nobody came up. She yelled at B in a text, accusing them of being a poor friend and alerting her ex-partners about her adultery. B disputed this heavily. But their friendship was in ruins. I supported B, claiming Freya was insane for suspecting them. Friend C supported Freya, saying it was suspicious that A, C and D did not show up at their assigned locations, and reasoning led to B. D felt they were all mad and even blamed me, claiming that if I was the snitch, why would all of the pals have turned up anywhere? They were unable to prove anything because no one was present on the beach. Freya felt offended. She said she would never hurt me, that she loved me too much to do so. We were sisters after all. In the end, D supported A and B because they believed Freya was insane. C remained with Freya. 4 and Freya never became a pair. Freya began dating Freya after believing the rat had disappeared. Poor, sweet Freya. His was the most terrible story since she cheated on him with his twin brother. This occurred when she was 20 and I was 18. Perhaps I was too old for this, but I wasn't finished yet. I was not going to let her ruin a nice guy's life. It took me longer to figure out this one. Twin brothers never question photos on Snapchat. Never question the guy's appearance. Why should they? They were twins. Then Freya shaved his head for a cancer-stricken buddy. His twin didn't? That is how I caught her? I obtained a video of them kissing in his car. Send it to Freya. I wiped my hands clean. He showed her the footage, and she freaked out. She had not informed anyone about the infidelity this time. Not me. Not C. Not 4. And since they were twins, she assumed no one would notice. Finally, she dated 4, the only guy remaining in our small town who was foolish enough to take her seriously. Of course, she did what she always did. She cheated. Here's the problem, I wasn't sure he'd break up with her over it, or if he'd believe it at all. So I waited. Collected evidence. In an unexpected twist of events, I discovered C and 4 cheating. They cheated on her. I submitted 4 images of Freya cheating. I emailed Freya photos of 4 cheating. It burst. She had no pals. Not one. She'd pushed them all away. And now, everyone in our small town knew she was a cheater. You might be asking why I'm telling this story right now. Why are you destroying my sister like this? I detest her. I've loathed her since I was a child. See, we're only half-sisters. Same father, different mothers? Our father cheated on her mom with my mother. My mother, whom I loved, was crippled. And my father had a superior attorney. When I was 5 years old, he abducted me from her. Legally, I assume. But my mother was only permitted visitation, nothing else. I have to see her once a week, for 1 hour. She was not considered safe to have children. When I got older, I would sneak over to her house after school to spend more time with her. My beloved older sister caught me and informed our father. We returned to court. And as a foolish 8-year-old, I told a judge that I despised my father. That he cheated? That guy was filth. That I wished he didn't know me. It was determined that my mother was isolating me from my father. And my visitation was restricted. I was sent to therapy to fix my feelings toward my father. Now, yes, I understand. She was just 10. But she never apologized. Even when I brought it up years later, she found nothing wrong with her actions. My mother died a year later. My father forbade me from attending her burial. My maternal grandparents attempted to push his hand, went to court. But they were shut down. They were instructed that unless they had proof that my father was a bad dad, they should not waste time. My father's wife forgave him. Not too bright in my opinion. She reared me with him. And I had my sister, who I despised. I pretended not to. Because the best retribution is best served cold. So, why tell this story now? Because my adorable half-sister uses this subreddit. I don't believe she has ever posted, but she lurks. And I'm moving out. I am going to live with my maternal grandparents. Why now, at 20, rather than at 18? Because today, the final nail in my revenge was driven into the coffin. I left photos all throughout the house. Photos of my father cheating on my stepmother, with several women. All are date-stamped, dating back to when they took me in approximately a week ago. Walmart's photo print service was quite helpful. I only want to destroy my father, and my sister. My stepmother, whom I honestly feel awful for, has a prenuptial agreement. If he cheats on her, he will receive nothing. She owns the home, the autos, the summer house. They have a shared bank account, which he may drain. However, to my understanding, the majority of her money is in a separate account. She's super rich. She was wealthy enough to pay for whatever I needed as a child, and she smiled the entire while. I'm not sure if she ever resented me. But she never revealed it. She treated me exactly like my sister. In addition, I left documentation that my sister was aware of our father's infidelity. Proof that my darling sister knew her mother was being cheated on but said nothing. Chat logs. Vocal recordings. Even physical invoices for presents he purchased to keep her quiet. It is all there. Waiting inside the home. Today, both my sister and father are away for the weekend. My stepmother will arrive home in a few hours. And I'll be gone. Even if Freya sees this 10 seconds after I hit post, she won't be able to clean up the mess in time. Okay, I see a lot of questions concerning the keyhole. To explain, my house is really old. Built by the residents of this town, back when dwellings were made by hand. You would just yell, "Help me build," and I'll buy the beer for the day. Unfortunately, they made several poor style decisions. Every bedroom door has a huge hole beneath the handle shaped like a keyhole. It was integrated into the metal plate connecting to the doorknob. The keyholes had no lock-like function. That house was so old that when we renovated it, we discovered knob and tube wiring. What about the insulation? Newspaper. Old bedsheets, Bible pages were torn, and more. There was also a frightening doll. Other unusual design decisions included what my sister dubbed a Coraline door. It once connected to a barn beside the house. But the barn had been gone for several years. And the real kicker? The basement light switch was in a restroom, not near the basement door. The bathroom light switch was located outside the bathroom. The cloth washer drain is linked to the shower, and when the washer is turned on, the shower bubbles up occasionally. To get rid of it, turn on the shower. In the basement, on the ceiling, there are several jar lids tacked to a piece of board because the previous owners used to nail the lids up and screw the jars in to retain nails, screws, and shattered glass. According to my father, the house is filthy, and strange things make little sense. There were other things I can't recall right now, but you assume the keyhole was more prevalent. It turns out it isn't, which surprises me. Edit. Many of you believe that a wealthy lady should live in a nice home. The house we lived in was purchased while she was pregnant with Freya. My father's grandparents and her great-grandfather were the builders, I believe, maybe not. All I know is that it was his family's home for years. He grew up there, but they lost it and had to relocate. He met and married my stepmother, and they stayed with her parents while searching for a home. He saw his old house for sale and begged my stepmother for it. She agreed on the proviso that they only hire labor when absolutely necessary, as her parents trained her to spend money wisely. They had Freya. He made minor repairs to one of the rooms, but no major renovations occurred at the time because they had a baby and were very busy. When they got me, the only repairs I knew about were that mine and Freya's rooms were cold. He opened the wall to inspect the insulation, which was old newspapers. The plan was for me and Freya to remain in their room while my stepmother and father slept on the couch until it was repaired. While doing this, he discovered the knob and tube wiring. We left the house while an expert repaired the wiring throughout the house. Then he finished insulating. When it comes to antique keyholes, my stepmother felt 3 were adorable. The bathroom was the only one that had been fixed. He removed the old-style handle, replaced it with a lockable one, pushed something into the hole, and plastered or painted over it, I'm not sure. We also tore up the 2 layers of carpet and removed the wallpaper from every room. While doing this in the living room, we discovered the Coraline door, as we named it. My father informed me that there used to be a barn immediately next to the home, and he assumed that was where it led. If you opened it now, you'd find nothing because the barn was gone. They hadn't just left an open hole in the wall, there were around 6 layers of wallpaper covering the door. These repairs and changes were always going on, all my father's work, because it was his paper and he understood what he was doing. I don't remember what happened when I was a kid. Also, you appear to believe that children aged 8 to 10 are stupid and incapable of holding grudges, which is absurd. I believe I mentioned that the revenge began at 13. Sure, the problem began at 8, but I had till 13 to stew and be outraged. No, I did not do this because a 10-year-old made an error. I did it because my sister never realized what she was doing was wrong. She told me I had a better family because of it, that my mother was a R, and that she did what was best and right. I despise her for never apologizing or acknowledging how much she damaged me. Edit. You want an update? I promise to give one, but things are hectic right now, so please wait. Question. Should I make a new post for the update or just add it here when I believe it's time? I keep seeing folks enter update me. How does this work? Question 2. Someone advised posting this in the Revenge subreddit. I do not want to copy and paste this. Does anyone who reads more than me know how to share the post or something in such subreddits so that more people may appreciate it? Question 3. I notice now that there has been a cross-post. Is that what I asked you about above? If so, how can I see where it has been cross-posted? I've been enjoying reading comments on Reddit and TikTok and don't want to miss out while waiting for things to settle down. Edit. Whoever dared to send Reddit care after me, sucks to be you. I'm already in therapy, and I learned a long time ago that you don't have to notify anyone until the act is completed. So it's too late for a therapist to try to quell the raging fire in your heart. Edit. I believe you will receive an update sometime today. I was going to update immediately, but I received a call from my therapist a few minutes ago, so I now have an appointment. Is it possible that this is because the video was shared on TikTok? Is there any dread in it? Or is this a coincidence? Update. I have wrecked my sister's relationships and friendships. Now I'm tearing apart her family. Am I pleased about it? Okay, hi everyone, you all requested an update. The original is growing too long, so I'm writing a second post on it. I'll start with my stepmother's reaction. Around the time she would have arrived home, I sat in front of my phone, waiting like a child on Christmas. To my disappointment, all I received was a text message. It said, tomorrow. Lunch, favorite pizza place. It didn't say the exact name, but you get the idea. That was all. I wondered whether she was going to take my life. After some discussion with my companions, I left. Dumb? Possibly. Am I still alive? You could say that. So I met my stepmother at my favorite pizza shop. We ordered, and she smiled at me. It was sort of creepy. She inquired if I understood why she had invited me out. My response was obviously idiotic, but I said, to murder me? She laughed, shook her head, and told me she had spent too much time keeping my dumb buttocks alive to kill me now. She said she invited me since she no longer has a need to keep my father's secrets from me. I, the theatrical dung beetle, asked for information. She provided. I still do not like her, but damn. She inquired whether I knew how my parents met. Obviously, I said no. She said that her cousin, Annie, was hosting a party for her friends and family. Adrian was acquainted with my mom, but she had never met my stepmother or father. My mother was born blind but enjoyed parties anyhow. There was alcohol there, but my mother simply drank pop in a glass with ice. My mother departed early because she didn't want to be away from Freya for too long, while my father stayed. Adrian presented my father and mother. Adrian had no reason to believe anything would occur. Adrian had already become intoxicated. Adrian, according to my stepmother, is unaware of what transpired next. She wasn't sure if my father had brought my mother a fresh cup with something other than pop, if he had dropped something in her drink, or if she had taken the wrong cup. Adrian glanced over and noticed my mother wobbling. In Sam's drunken view, my mother was plainly inebriated. There were a lot of cups on the table, so Adrian imagined Mom had grabbed the wrong cup too often. She brought my mother upstairs to sleep it off. That was the last time she saw my mother that night, though she did see my father a few times. Adrian continued to hang out with my mother, and one day, she revealed that she was pregnant. At the time, my mother was single. Adrian did some mental math and blew out, asking my mother a lot of questions, but my mother laughed it off, claiming she became pregnant after a one-night stand, not at the party. Adrian agreed hesitantly. Adrian cared for both me and Freya when I was born. Her red flags went up again when she saw us side by side, so she took a DNA test, one with me and one with Adrian, figuring that if it was a family member, we would be a slight match. We were not a good match, and she was relieved. Adrian babysat for us again when I was 3 and Freya was 5. According to my stepmother, Adrian couldn't stop staring at us and conducted another test on me and Freya. She received the results, and her heart fell. Freya and I were a match. She remained silent for a while, periodically asking my mother questions, but she couldn't keep it a secret and eventually told my stepmother. My stepmother exploded at my father. He said he was inebriated and confused my mother for her. He claimed there was consent, but it was a mistake that occurred only once. My stepmother agreed to forgive him on the condition that he be a part of my life. She expected him to concede that my mother would not want to be near him, but he and my mother settled in court. My stepmother expressed her dissatisfaction with this, but she accepted it. When I became increasingly alienated from my father, she handed him money for family therapy and playdates. He used this money, plus his own, to hire a lawyer and essentially take me. She couldn't stop him once she knew what he had done. She continued to have little to no interest in me and refused to become involved. My mother died, and she understood something. If she left him now, she would be leaving me with an imbecile who would most likely sell me for a pair of shoes. If she left, she could take Freya, but she had no claim to me, and I never allowed her to adopt me. That was not helping. She attempted to assist my grandparents in fighting for me, but they were silenced. She decided she'd put up with him to protect me. Her words. I don't know if this is real. She claimed she didn't care now that I knew the truth. She was divorcing him and wouldn't have to think about him anymore. I asked her about Freya, and she shrugged, saying her daughter resembles her father too much for her liking. She planned to give Freya a couple options for addressing the issues she observed in her, such as therapy or cutting off contact with her father. But she was going to steal everything from my father, because the prenuptial agreement they signed stated that the cheater gets nothing but the clothing on their back. This is just what I wanted. We left it there. She held me and apologized for not being better, for making so many mistakes, and for making me dislike both her and Freya. She said that if I needed anything, I should let her know. I'm starting to believe I misjudged her. I don't know yet though. We parted ways, and I returned home. I waited and waited before getting a call from my dad. I did not respond. He texted me, stating I was a terrible daughter, that he wanted me out of his house, LOL, and that he never wanted to see me again. He said I destroyed his marriage for a deceased lady he barely knew. He was furious about it, but I texted him back and told him that he had years to stop cheating on my stepmother and not let me catch him. He could have lived the picture-perfect life he believed he deserved. On my mother's behalf, I also used some strong language toward him. Next up came Freya. She did, in fact, locate the post. And did they apologize? Not. She texted me paragraph after paragraph, calling me a manipulative boonies and claiming I spent my life lying to her face about a mistake she made when she was 10. That she did not have to apologize or feel awful. That I should have enjoyed being a member of a new rich family. That I did not need to notify her mother about her father's bribery or her dishonesty. During the discussion, I told my stepmother that it was my fault that she gave Freya the ultimatum to go to therapy, break off contact with Dad, or find another place to live. I merely replied with a laughing emoji and blocked both her and my father. That was all yesterday. It doesn't end there. As some of you know, my therapist phoned me this morning. He inquired whether I had time to meet today. I did, and so I met with him. When I stepped in, he turned his laptop towards me and showed me a TikTok video about me. He questioned, "Is this you?" I couldn't stop laughing. He only shook his head, saying he had a lot more work to do than he expected, but he was smiling. I noticed the smile. He just didn't want to tell me that he felt my retribution was fantastic. I know it. We talked briefly about the problem and how far it was. I disagree, but whatever. I left. Later, my stepmother called and begged for assistance with something. I went to her residence out of curiosity. She told me that her lawyer recommended her to allow Dad time yesterday to come get his belongings and leave. He gathered what he could, and today we were going to make a campfire. I questioned if this was lawyer approved, and she shrugged, stating it was her property regardless. Dad didn't buy any of it and probably couldn't afford a lawyer to fight her. So we tossed a lot of stuff in a mound and let it burn. It was kind of fun. She summoned Auntie Adrian over, who cried and held me because she felt guilty about not telling me. But she despised my father and refused to be near him. I showed my stepmother the text from Freya, and she called Freya, telling her she had only herself to blame. She told her not to blame me since she couldn't stop chasing nice guys away. If she wanted to stay with a wonderful guy, she should stop acting like her unfaithful mess of a father. She informed Freya she had a week to make her decision. She's an adult, and my stepmother can leave her whenever she wants. Then she hung up. My stepmother, Auntie Sam, and I ordered pizza. My stepmother's father called to find out what was going on and why Freya had shown up at their house crying. My stepmother went inside. I'm not sure what she said, but she walked out looking smug and told me not to worry about Freya because he was no longer my concern. I brushed it off and replied, "Whatever. Anyway, the day isn't finished yet, but I've blocked Freya and Dad." My maternal grandparents have confirmed that after my mother died, my stepmother was ready to slip them money to hire a lawyer and fight for me. I confronted her about not assisting them when Mom was alive, but she maintains that she was unaware my father was bringing them to court the second time until it was too late. She also expressed reluctance to contact my mother after assisting in the kidnapping. My stepmother's parents have also advised me not to worry about my father and Luca. If they do anything further after this, they will wish they had licked their wounds and moved on. I'm not sure what my stepmother's parents told Luca, but they appear to be strongly opposed to cheating of any type and believe Freya should do as my stepmother advised. Cut off Dad, seek therapy, and apologize to me. That, I believe, concludes things. It was chaotic for a while, but I'm getting on with my life, washing my hands of Freya and Dad. My stepmother said she entirely understands if I don't want anything to do with her. She said she made a lot of mistakes when I was younger, but she still wants to help me with expenditures and other things. In any case, everyone in my small town is aware of what they have done. Some individuals in my town, not just my therapist, discovered the post, and drama travels quickly. Apparently, I also own it. When people ask me about it, I tell them because I want them to understand what they did to me. I don't believe my stepmother is facing much blowback. She delivered all of the images I printed off to her lawyer, who laughed at the pile and claimed that my mere existence was enough proof for the divorce, but the pile didn't matter. Especially since I wrote dates on many of the photos, some of which were extremely recent. I don't believe this is as nice as the previous post because I never expected to make an update. I kind of just wrote it as it happened. I hope this calms down the drama fans in the comments. If anything more happens, I will probably post it here. There will not be any further updates. Mocked for my weight, I transformed with confidence. When I returned, my family grew jealous and tried to bring me down. Growing up, I was always an overweight child. I've always been bigger than the majority of the other kindergarten students. While my peers were still figuring out what made them distinctive, my size had already stood out. As I grew older, the weight I carried became more visible. By high school, I was indisputably overweight, and my shape and girth served as a continuous reminder of my differences. College was not much different. While some of my peers began to discover who they were or explore new aspects of themselves, I stayed trapped in the same identity, overweight and occasionally fighting with it. It wasn't easy being the bigger kid. It exposed me to continual ridicule, mockery, and nasty comments from people who didn't know or cared to understand me. Growing up, I was bullied more than I'd want to recall. Classmates teased me mercilessly. Their words ate away at me, creating profound doubts and self-doubt that, at times, felt hard to overcome. They'd call me names and make crude jokes, and I'd frequently be the punchline. I was always singled out, as if I were somehow unworthy of affection or companionship. I was continually excluded from games, parties, and gatherings. It felt like I was always on the outside, watching everyone else go through the regular ups and downs of childhood and adolescence from a distance I couldn't reach. These years of bullying influenced how I perceived myself and responded to the world. I felt out of place with others, so I sought sanctuary in books. I lost myself in literature and stories that helped me escape my daily troubles. Books did not judge me. They did not ridicule me. I became known as the nerd, and I didn't like it all that much. My younger sister, Bonnie, was radically different from me. She was only a year younger than me and possessed an effortless charisma that drew others to her. Bonnie thrived in social situations, whereas I was shy and reserved. She had a magnetic personality. She could come into a room and immediately have everyone smiling, laughing, and absolutely fascinated by her. Bonnie didn't just make friends easily, she seemed to have an intrinsic ability to persuade people to support her, almost as if she were the sun around which everyone gravitated. Regardless of our differences, I adored her. I took my job as her older sister seriously, feeling fiercely protective whenever she needed it. When she began attending the same high school as mine, I was overjoyed. Initially, being Bonnie's older sister made me feel proud, as if I had a particular place in her life. However, as she grew older, things began to alter. As Bonnie settled into high school and began to create her own personality, I saw a difference in how she perceived me. She began to see how different we were, and how differently we were treated. Whereas I was the bookish, quiet kind, she was vivacious and popular, someone who rapidly established herself among the cool circle. I observed as she became aware of my peculiarities and insecurities, which others considered uncool. Bonnie began to distance herself from me as she found new pals. She would then try to actively ignore or avoid me in school. That hurt. It genuinely pained me that my own sibling saw me as inferior. Nonetheless, I did my best to accept her decision, to give her the space she appeared to need, even if it hurt to think I was losing not only my sister, but also a friend. Bonnie gradually stopped ignoring me and began interacting with people who made me feel like an outcast. If Bonnie and I met in the corridors or at lunch, she and her pals would take advantage of any opportunity to embarrass me. They'd taunt me in front of other students or, worse, try to trip me as I passed past with my lunch tray, just to make everyone laugh. It seemed like I was losing her, not only to new people, but to the same mocking and nasty conduct I'd had to put up with for so long. I was always on guard, attempting to avoid not just my peers' criticism but also the humiliation inflicted by my own sister. It hurt a lot, especially because it came from someone I had always admired and looked up to. When Bonnie invited her pals over, they would try to gang up on me at home. They would rush into my room without knocking, then laugh and gesture to my body. They'd fling insults like geek and fatty at me like they were nothing. I'd feel like a zoo animal, as if I were there to entertain them. When they entered my personal space in my room, I felt small and alone, as if I were an alien in my own home. I tried talking to my parents about it several times, hoping they would realize how tough it was for me to deal with Bonnie's conduct. But every time I brought it up, they dismissed my worries. They'd smile and defend her actions, claiming that this was how siblings related, and that Bonnie was merely playing with me. They told me it was harmless, even suggesting that I loosen up and stop taking everyone's taunts so seriously. They told me that I was older and should be more patient and resilient. So, not only did I face years of bullying from my peers, including my own sister, but my concerns were repeatedly rejected by my parents. It made me feel isolated, as if no one in my own family realized or understood how deeply it hurt. The only time I ever felt properly noticed by our parents was when I received my grades. Academics had always come effortlessly to me, and I became accustomed to receiving high grades. In a way, it was the one area where I felt superior to everyone else. It was also the one way I could make my parents proud. The one part of my life that they appeared to actually care about. My parents enjoyed bragging about my accomplishments to friends and family, portraying me as the family scholar, as if my grades were evidence of their parenting prowess. But Bonnie detested the analogies. She was not an academic overachiever, nor did she want to be, but our parents' repeated reminders of my accomplishments made her resentful. They put my grades up as an example, meaning that she needed to do the same. I could always sense her annoyance and rage, which I assume is why she did what she did to me. Bonnie would occasionally attempt to destroy my hard work in order to get back at me. She'd sneak into my room in the middle of the night and take my homework. Sometimes, shortly before a large task was due, I'd wake up in the morning to find my meticulously finished work gone. Panic would set in, and I'd feverishly hunt through my books, papers, and files, becoming increasingly anxious with each passing minute. And there she'd be, smirking, watching me from the doorway, relishing every moment of my anxiety. To her, it was a minor win, a way to bring me down a peg and remind me that I wasn't invincible. She understood how important my grades were to me, how much of my self-worth I had invested in them, and she enjoyed disturbing that aspect of my life. I only out about her stealing my assignments years later, when she drunkenly admitted one evening. My friendship with Bonnie has grown softer over time. Though we're not close, you might say we've matured a little, and some of the bitterness from our youth has dissipated. However, the strong closeness that siblings often enjoy did not fully emerge between us. After college, I moved away and began constructing a life in a new place with an interesting job and new chances, which meant I didn't visit my family very frequently. As time passed, our communications became limited to occasional phone calls or texts. So, when I decided to travel home for the summer, I was truly excited to see everyone. It had been a long time since we'd all gotten together as a family, and I was excited to catch up and reconnect. However, not everything went as planned. Our family lunch began well enough. Everyone appeared delighted to see me, and for a moment, it felt like old times. That changed, however, when Bonnie unexpectedly revealed her engagement. None of us saw it coming, and we initially assumed she was joking. However, it became evident that she was serious. She proudly put out her hand, displaying a gorgeous ring, and I couldn't help but remark how exquisite it was. I was genuinely happy for her, delighted that she'd finally met someone she loved and who loved her back. Almost as soon as the congratulations subsided, Bonnie turned to me and inquired about my recent activities. I told her about my profession, my life, and how rewarding things had been for me. Before I could finish, she cut me off. "I can't help but say this," she started, smirking. "But why are you still fat? I mean, if your life is really that great, shouldn't you have lost weight by now?" Her remarks hit me like a slap, reawakening old insecurities I thought I had overcome. The room became uncomfortably silent, and I could feel everyone's gaze on me, waiting to see how I would respond. I merely shrugged and tried to laugh awkwardly at her comment. But my parents immediately joined in to criticize me. They began talking about how I was still obese and unmarried, and how they were concerned that I would never have children. I felt so mortified hearing them talk like that. My successes, the profession I was proud of, the life I had made on my own in another city, none of it seemed to matter to them. They were just concerned with my weight and the fact that I did not have my own family. As my parents and sister continued to talk about me, their comments wounded deeper than I imagined. I'd spent years of my life finally coming into my own, gaining confidence and independence, yet, at those moments, I felt like the same nervous, awkward teenager I'd always been, desperate for my family's acceptance. My parents then applauded Bonnie for getting engaged before me and expressed their pride in her. To them, I was the inferior child, successful but not quite enough. What was supposed to be a happy family reunion had swiftly turned into a heartbreaking reminder of old scars. At that point, I felt more like an outsider than ever. Bonnie did not stop. She continued to ask probing questions. So, when are you getting married? I mean, do you even have a boyfriend? She was blatantly mocking me in front of everyone by bringing up my romantic life. My parents eagerly jumped on the subject, agreeing with Bonnie that it was past time for me to meet someone before it was too late. They pointed out that Bonnie, being younger, was settling down before me, but I, being older, was still throwing my life away at work. I attempted to argue that I liked my life the way it was, that my profession and freedom provided me with fulfillment. My job paid well, and I was passionate about it. And why did I have to find a man and have a child? I am content just as I am. But my words didn't appear to register. My mother, in particular, appeared disdainful, giving me a pointed look and taunting, "What's the point of earning all that money if you don't have anyone to come home to?" It was as if she couldn't believe that happiness existed outside of marriage or family. Sitting there, I had the typical feeling of being misunderstood, that my life choices were disregarded. This was my family, the ones who should have known me best, but they seemed to be obsessed with a different idea of happiness. I had come home seeking connection and warmth, but instead got judgment and taunts. Bonnie then mentioned that she anticipated me to have at least a +1 by the time her wedding rolled around. She explained that she didn't want people to think her sister was an old, miserable woman who was getting married alone. The comment stung. I simply shook my head and assured her I would try. This is when my parents casually told me that since Bonnie's wedding was approaching, even if I couldn't find a spouse, I could at least try to lose weight and look better for her wedding. They suggested that if I reduced weight, it would be simpler for me to attract a partner. Bonnie agreed with my parents and said she wanted me to lose at least a few pounds. I sat there, astonished and humiliated, with an aching that I hadn't felt in years. How could my relatives talk to me like this? Did I truly deserve their hateful words simply because I was overweight? Was I not meant to have feelings because I was fat? I was a normal human being, just like them. I functioned exactly like everyone else. I never saw my weight as a hindrance, so why should they? I'd even dated men who liked me just the way I was, but my parents and Bonnie were making it appear as if my weight kept me from finding love or having men approach me, which wasn't even true. I wanted to defend myself and tell them how cruel their words were, but I felt paralyzed and unable to find the correct words. Their statements took me back to high school, to the agonizing times when my weight made me a target. I despised how nonchalantly my relatives brought up my deepest fears, seemingly unconcerned about how they affected me. So I sat there, holding in my pain, and let the topic go to anything else. When I returned home from my trip to see my family, I pushed myself into reducing weight with a zeal I had not realized I possessed. It began as a method to prove something to my family, but it eventually grew more personal. I joined a gym, followed a rigorous diet, and even hired a personal trainer. My trainer has been a lifesaver. She knew just how to assist me through a path tailored to my own needs, having gone through her own change from overweight to healthy weight. She created a routine specific to my goals and encouraged me every step of the way, reminding me to give myself grace when I stumbled. This time, everything seemed to click. I started losing weight steadily, and as the pounds fell off, I felt lighter, not just physically but also mentally. For the first time in my life, I began to feel and appear different. My confidence increased quickly. I used to assume that decreasing weight wouldn't have much of an influence, but it has. People see me differently today. Strangers are nicer and more attentive. Friends and colleagues regard me with fresh respect, and I can't deny that this feels like a validation I've never had before. It's as if I've suddenly become more noticeable than I was before. My new body brought a new sense of style. I overhauled my entire wardrobe, filling it with clothing I'd only fantasized about wearing. I even opted for a full hair makeover, attempting a daring and trendy style that I would have been too afraid to try in the past. Perhaps it seems expensive, but I've never felt so good. I look in the mirror now, and I don't recognize the person staring back. It's like meeting a version of myself that I never knew existed. I'm proud of how far I've gone, not just because I've lost weight, but also because I've gained confidence and self-assurance. Bonnie's wedding is approaching, so my family has invited me to fly down and join them for lunch to finalize some details. However, I do not feel like returning home. I don't want my family to ridicule me again and make me feel tiny, especially now that I'm feeling good about myself for the first time in a long while. I don't want to go to Bonnie's wedding anymore because of how she and my parents have treated me. But I know if I don't go, they'll be furious and give me a long lecture about how family is family and how, no matter how heartbroken I am, I must be present for Bonnie's big day. So, would it be wrong for me not to attend my sister's wedding? Update 1. Wow. I'm overwhelmed by everyone's response. Some of your proposals are truly humorous. I can't believe you're encouraging me to show up and mess with my sister now that I've shed so much weight. Growing up as a fat kid had a negative impact on my self-esteem, particularly in terms of how I perceived myself. I struggled with self-doubt for a long time, always believing that I wasn't good enough or didn't measure up to others. But reading all of your responses has been a game changer. It's as if you've helped me see myself in a completely new light, and I'm finally starting to feel more confident than I ever have. In fact, I'm seriously considering turning up to my family's lunch and shocking them. They haven't seen me in a long time, and since I don't use social media, they have no idea how much weight I've dropped. It will be interesting to witness their reactions. Update 2. Okay, Reddit, you're not prepared for this upgrade. Grab some popcorn because things are about to get exciting. I decided to fly down to join my family for lunch. I assumed that when they saw me, they would be happy with the transformation I had undergone, because after all, they had been the ones who pushed me toward it in the first place. Surely, they'd be overjoyed to see the positive improvements in me and finally recognize the effort I'd put in. The instant I walked into my parents' house, their jaws absolutely dropped. They looked at me, astonished, as if they couldn't believe I was the same person. After a time, they stammered, wondering if it was actually me. I gave them a big hug, thrilled with their reaction. They continually complimented my appearance, saying how beautiful I looked and how they couldn't believe it was me. However, when Bonnie came, the situation changed. She didn't notice me at first, disregarding me as if I were invisible, as she had done many times before. But when I rose up to greet her, she did a double take, her eyes widening with surprise. She gave an odd, almost forced laugh before reaching over and pushing her fingers on my stomach, wide-eyed, as if she wanted proof that I had truly dropped all of that weight. My parents chuckled at her reaction and informed her that they couldn't believe it either. As we settled in for lunch, the subject turned to my makeover. Bonnie and my parents bombarded me with questions about how I'd done it, marveling at how different I appeared. Their voices were full of surprise, as if they had never imagined I could look any other way. Bonnie, in particular, kept saying that she had never anticipated me to shift so dramatically. After a while, she said, "When I first requested you to lose weight, I never imagined you'd look this good. I had no idea you had that jawline and those ankles underneath all that fat." I hesitated, trying to retain my cool, and smiled at her before telling her, "Bonnie, I've always been gorgeous. Losing weight simply improved my characteristics." Bonnie, on the other hand, contended that it wasn't just that. There was something else about me that was unique. She then had the audacity to inquire, "Did you have any procedures done on yourself? Because you can't look this fantastic on your own." I could feel my blood starting to boil. The hubris to believe that I required surgery to look attractive, despite the fact that I had worked so hard to achieve my current appearance. I looked her directly in the eyes and said, "Wow, Bonnie. It's amazing how little you think of me. No surgery, just a lot of hard work and self-love, which you should try someday." Bonnie's expression changed from surprise to displeasure, but I didn't care. It felt amazing to finally say something and put her in her place. Before she could react, my parents jumped in, attempting to smooth things over in their own way. "You shouldn't be offended," my mother replied. "All three of us have never seen you look like this before. Honestly, you look more lovely now than Bonnie, and she's the one getting married." Bonnie appeared much angrier following Mom's remark. I simply ignored her and concentrated on my food, allowing my sister to seethe in her rage. Then my mother interjected. "You know, I was thinking, maybe you should go back to your original hair color. I believe you would look even better in your natural hue. This blonde appearance causes you to stand out too much. Maybe you could just return to your former look." Bonnie and my father quickly agreed with her. My father supported my mother, saying that Bonnie was always the blonde daughter in the family and I was the brunette, so it would be a good idea for me to return to my original hair color, which would make me appear more like myself. Hearing their statements, I was taken aback. I suddenly felt like the three of them were ganging up on me and attempting to bring me down. My hairstylist was the one who changed my hair color to blonde because it complemented my skin tone and face better. It had nothing to do with attempting to outperform or overshadow my sister. I could see why Bonnie was jealous of me because I looked so nice right now, but I couldn't figure out why my parents were so unhappy with me. It was as if they wanted to revert me to my original self, despite the fact that they were the ones who wanted me to be more acceptable for their darling daughter's forthcoming wedding. But now that I did, they couldn't accept who I had become. Instead of recognizing my progress, they sought to undermine me. Finally, I questioned my folks. What is your problem? Why can't I be blonde? Does my sister own that hue or something? I paused, annoyed. No, she doesn't. I can be either blonde or brunette. It's my decision. Why does it matter to you so much? I couldn't understand why they were so obsessed with returning to my former self, as if my appearance had to match who I was. My mother scoffed at me, claiming that I was willfully sabotaging Bonnie's approaching wedding by attempting to stand out with my appearance. Bonnie also jumped in, suggesting that with my weight loss, I was already going to stand out, so did I really need to match her hair color? My father, as usual, agreed with them, telling me that I was being difficult for no reason and that, as Bonnie's sister, I should be more tolerant. I couldn't believe what I heard. It was not about stealing anything, it was about giving myself the freedom to do whatever made me happy. But instead of supporting it, they were all concerned about how it would make Bonnie uncomfortable. Do you know what? I'm done with this, I murmured, the words almost burning as they left my lips. The three of you are so wrapped up in your own negativity that you can't even admit I've changed. The reality is, I've always been fantastic just the way I am, but none of you ever noticed. Now that I've lost weight, it's still not good enough for you. No matter what I do, it is never enough. I took time to process what I had just said. They only gazed at me, and it didn't matter. I was done with holding back. Since you all have so much to say about me, I believe it is time I gave you some unsolicited advice, just like you do to me. I turned to my mother first, feeling the words surge inside me like a deluge. Mom, I really hate how loose the skin is around your eyes and your lips. They droop on one side when you laugh. I can't help but notice all your crooked teeth, and honestly, it's just disgusting to me. Dad, I said sharply. You're bald. You really have no right to say anything about anyone's hair or their hair color. How are you going to criticize someone's looks when you can't even keep a full head of hair? I noticed his face stiffening, but I wasn't finished yet. Finally, I resorted to Bonnie. And you, don't ever talk down to me again. Between the two of us, I've always been the better-looking sibling. But now, with all the weight I've lost, you look even fatter than me. Just look at those chubby arms of yours. Bonnie's cheeks flushed with shame, and she appeared to be on the verge of tears. I then hoisted my glass, downed my drink in one go, and walked out with a smirk, leaving everyone stunned and astonished. I said everything I had to say. I couldn't believe these words had come from my mouth, yet I didn't regret them one bit. They deserved to be humiliated after years of being criticized. After lunch, I flew directly back home. I didn't want to stay behind and attend Bonnie's wedding. Since then, my phone has been overloaded with voicemails and texts from my parents and Bonnie. They've been calling me disrespectful and foul-mouthed for how I spoke to them and then left. Mom even insists that I fly down to Bonnie's wedding, claiming that not having me there will make her in-laws unhappy. Update 3. So I ended up skipping Bonnie's wedding. Thanks to all of your suggestions, instead of returning home to attend, I decided to treat myself to an impromptu stay at a 5-star resort. It was truly one of the best moves I'd made in a long time. I spent the weekend doing whatever made me happy, no drama or pressure, just pure enjoyment. I treated myself to a spa day, binge-watched my favorite shows, and even discovered some new sites in the city that I'd been dying to visit. I've also blocked my relatives, so they can't contact me again. I'm weary of being bullied by them and want to avoid all of the poison and drama. Right now, my primary focus is on self-care. I discovered my family only valued my money, not me. I cut them off, reclaimed my life, and found freedom in choosing myself over their manipulation. My name is Emma, and until a few nights ago, I believed that my family loved me. It began with a simple notification. My aunt had given me a video. I was in the midst of preparing dinner when my phone rang. I wiped my hands on a towel, grabbed my phone, and unintentionally tapped the message. At first, I assumed she sent me something random, a family movie, or an old film she found amusing. But then I heard my mom's voice. Emma should be grateful. She'd be nothing without us. My stomach sank. The video looked unsteady, as if someone had laid their phone down without realizing it was recording, but the voices were perfectly audible. A pathetic failure? That's what Emma is, my father said with a laugh. But at least she's good for something, paying our bills. Laughter? I held my phone more tightly. If Emma ever stopped sending money, my aunt, who had just sent this, said with a smirk, we'd just guilt her into it. She's too soft to say no. My entire body became numb. Emma. This is my name. They weren't discussing a hypothetical person. They were not fooling around. They were talking about me. I had been assisting them for years, paying their rent, covering their debts, and spending my own funds to ensure they never struggled in the same manner I did. And is this what they truly thought of me? I was still stuck, my thumb hanging over the screen, when the video abruptly disappeared. This message has been unsent. I gazed at the notification. My aunt realized her error. She must have panicked and deleted the video, assuming I hadn't noticed. I should have challenged her. Should have called her out. I should have told them I knew everything. But instead, I put down my phone and pretended I hadn't seen it. And that's when I determined I wouldn't react. Not yet. I had a plan. I sat for what seemed like hours, staring at my phone. The words echoed in my thoughts. Emma should be grateful. A pathetic failure. She's too soft to say no. I wanted to believe there was a misunderstanding. Perhaps they were joking. Perhaps I was missing some context. But deep inside I knew better. I knew the truth. They intended every word. And the worst part? They were not wrong about one thing, I was too soft to say no. How many times had they guilted me into assisting them? How many times have I put my own life on hold to ensure they got what they required? My father's temporary financial difficulties developed into me paying rent for years. My brother's tuition, he didn't even complete college. My mother's incessant emergencies, always neatly timed when I had just been paid. And I had done everything without hesitation. Because that's what families are meant to do, right? I had spent years convincing myself that I was doing the correct thing. They appreciated me. They said they loved me. But that one video shattered every fantasy I had left. And now they believed they had gotten away with it. My aunt had unsent the message, perhaps breathing a sigh of relief that I hadn't noticed it. Perhaps she even reassured everyone. Don't worry, Emma didn't watch it. They assumed I was still in the dark. That was my advantage. I could have texted her right there. Could have confronted her. I told her I had seen everything. But what would that accomplish? They'd simply deny it. Make excuses. Twist the circumstances so that I feel guilty. I'd let them assume I was still their dutiful little financial account, for the time being. The next payment was due in a few days. And this time, things would be different. The next morning, I awoke to my normal routine, but everything felt different. The sun still shone through my drapes. My coffee brewed just as it usually did. But there was this awareness in the back of my mind, as if I was observing my life from a new perspective. My phone vibrated. A message from my mother. Mom. Morning, sweetie, just checking in. I hope you're doing well. I stared at the message. It was usual, too normal. She never texted me simply to check in. There was always a cause, and a request was hidden somewhere. And just a few minutes later. Mom. Oh, by the way, the rent is due soon. Can you send it by Friday? There it was. The same cycle. The same motif. But this time, I was not going to play along. I typed a response with my fingertips hovering over the keyboard. My typical response would be something like of course, or no issue. Maybe I'd even apologize for taking so long, just so they didn't feel inconvenienced. Not this time. I deleted everything and simply responded, I can't this month. Before sending the message, I glanced at it for a few seconds. I set down my phone and waited. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Buzz. Mom. What do you mean, you can't? I could see the displeasure on the television. I'd never said no before. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I took a sip of my coffee, leaving her to stew in her bewilderment. A couple more messages arrived. Mom. Emma, this is serious? We are counting on you. You know we don't have any other options right now. Another buzz. This time it's from my aunt. Aunt. Hello, honey. Your mother is freaking out. Is everything okay? I nearly laughed. Is everything okay? Sure. Everything was excellent. I had spent years paying for their life, and when I hinted at stopping, they panicked. They never asked me if I was all right, if I needed assistance. It never was about me. It had never been. I took a deep breath and responded. Me. I've had some unexpected bills this month. I cannot send anything. Sorry. That was it. There's no explanation, no apologies. And then I waited. What happened next revealed all I needed to know. The silence was terrible. For the first time in years, I had declined. They didn't know how to manage it. I stared at my phone, watching the 3 small dots appear and disappear. Over and over. My mom was typing. Stopping. Typing again. I envisioned her sitting there, fuming, trying to figure out the best way to persuade me to change my decision. Finally, her response got through. Mom. Emma, what do you mean by unexpected expenses? Is there anything more essential than your family? There it was. Guilt trip. They had always employed the same technique. I didn't respond. I simply let the message sit there. Less than 1 minute later. Mom. You know your brother doesn't have a way to pay his rent. If he's kicked out, that's on you. Ah. The brother card. Classic. Then another message. Mom. Emma, we raised you. We cared for you when you had nothing. Is this how you're repaying us? I gritted my jaw and tightened my fingers around my phone. When I had nothing? They never cared for me. I put myself through school. I worked 3 jobs to get out of that house. And as soon as I got money, they hung on to me like leeches, sucking me dry. They grabbed everything, so I had nothing. My phone vibrated again. Aunt. Emma, dear, do not do this. We are family. Your mother is merely upset. You know how she gets. Simply send the rent, and everything will be okay. Everything will be okay. Who is it fine for? I put down my phone, my heart hammering. I needed a second to breathe and ponder. I strolled to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and took a slow sip while looking at the clock on the wall. I could feel something shifting within me. For years, I had been afraid of this moment. I was afraid that if I stopped paying, they would detest me. They would cut me off. They would turn their back on me. But now I know the truth. They've never loved me. They adored what I could offer them. And the moment that ceased, they would reveal who they were. Buzz. I strolled back to my phone and picked it up with firm hands. This time, the communication came from my father. Dad. Emma, I'm not sure what has gotten into you, but this is unacceptable. You are being selfish. This family needs you, and you're behaving like an entitled brat. Grow up and do the right thing. There it was. The final mask slips. No more faking kindness. No more pretending to care, just demands. I stared at the words, my heart racing in my ears. Then another notification came up. A voice message. From my aunt. My hands trembled as I paused, my thumb lingering above the play button. Something told me this would change everything. I hesitated for a long time, staring at the small play button on the screen. A voice message. From Aunt D. My heart beat against my ribcage. She was not the type to send voice messages. If she had something to say, she usually sugar-coated it in text, passive-aggressive with just enough phony sweetness to make me feel bad. But this was different. Slowly, I pressed play. Her voice came through, harsh and impatient. Aunt. Listen, Emma. I'm not sure what game you're playing, but this isn't humorous. Your mother is losing her sanity. Your father is upset. And honestly, I do not blame them. You have always been a little ungrateful. But this is quite selfish. I felt my gut clench, but I forced myself to continue listening. Aunt. You have a wonderful job, right? You earn more than any of us. You don't even need the money. Meanwhile, your family is struggling. So what? Did you just wake up one day and realize you don't care? A bitter laugh. You owe them, Emma. After all they've done for you. Following all the sacrifices they made. They gave you life. Now you're going to walk away? Pretend they do not exist. What kind of a daughter would do that? She breathed forcefully, and for a moment I believed she was finished. But then? Aunt. You know what? Her tone altered, becoming colder now. If you truly want to be that kind of person, that's fine. But do not expect them to forgive you. Don't expect to come crawling back once you discover how much you rely on them. Because when you pass this line, there's no going back. The message terminated. Silence. I let the words sink, my thumb hovering over the replay button. My ears rang, and my hands were numb. I should have been afraid. I should have panicked. I should have been hurrying to make things right, to correct this, to apologize. But instead, I felt relaxed. More than that, I felt free. Because she'd just verified everything. They did not love me. They did not respect me. They did not even recognize me as a person. They regarded me as nothing more than a financial account. A moving, breathing ATM. And the instant I stopped distributing money, I was nothing. And if that was the case, perhaps it was time to become nothing to them. Buzz. Another communication from my mom. Mom. This is your last opportunity, Emma. Send the rent. I stared at the message for a very long time. Then, without hesitation, I blocked her. I blocked my father, I blocked my aunt. And suddenly, for the first time in years, I was free. Or so I thought. Because the next day, my brother arrived at my home. The knock at my door sent shivers down my spine. It was early. It's too early. The sun was barely peeking over the horizon at this early hour, when most people were still sleeping. For a second, I considered ignoring it. Perhaps it was a neighbor. Perhaps there was a parcel. Maybe it wasn't what I thought it was. Then, another knock. This time, it was louder. Become more insistent. I took a slow breath, braced myself and walked to the door. My fingers paused on the handle, and my heart pounded in my chest. And then I opened it. There he was. My brother. His face contorted between fury and desperation, and his clothes wrinkled as if he hadn't slept. God's eyes. Bloodshot. Wild. Are you serious, Emma? His voice was as cutting as a sword shoved against my skin. What the hell is wrong with you? I blinked and kept my expression neutral. Good morning to you too. He scoffed and ran his hand through his already untidy hair. Don't do that. Don't act like this isn't a big deal. You blocked everyone. Mom is freaking out. Dad's losing his mind. You're just... What? Cutting us off? Pretending we don't exist? I crossed my arms and leaned against the door frame. I don't know, Jason. Maybe I just got tired of being treated like a piggy bank. His jaw clenched. Oh my God. Not this again, not this again. I gave out a sour laugh. Jason, I've been paying your rent for years. I've covered your bills, your food, even your stupid gym membership, and the one time I say no? The one time I set a boundary? Mom calls me a selfish brat, Dad says I'm unacceptable, and you show up at my door like I committed a crime. His lips parted as if he were going to argue, but no words emerged. So I continued going. And don't even try to pretend you care about me. I cocked my head, my voice cold. I saw the video. His face turned pallid. For the first time, genuine dread flashed across his eyes. What video? I smiled, but it was not a pleasant one. You know exactly what video. Jason shifted on his feet, looked aside as his hands balled into fists. Look, it wasn't serious, okay? We were just joking. You're being dramatic. Joking? My voice was soft, yet as sharp as glass. You all sat around laughing, calling me a pathetic failure. Saying I should be grateful for the chance to pay your bills. Do you know what that feels like, Jason? To hear your own family talk about you like that? He breathed sharply and rubbed his face. Emma, come on. No. I cut him off. You come on. You want money? Get a job. You want someone to take care of you? Find someone else. Because I'm done. Silence. He just stood there and stared at me. And for a little moment, I saw something spark across his face. Something rough. However, it was gone just as suddenly. You don't mean that, he grumbled. I retained his stare. Yes, I do. Another lapse in stillness. Then his expression darkened. His mouth curled into something unpleasant. Fine, he snapped. You want to be a selfish bitch? Go ahead. But don't come crawling back when you realize you have no one left. With that, he turned to walk away. I stood there, watching him leave. My chest was tense, yet my back was straight, because he was incorrect. I did have someone leave. I had myself. But, as I closed the door, letting out a trembling breath, my phone vibrated. I looked at the screen, and the familiar name flashed. It was my mom. But I was not going to pick up. Not this time. I had been at her mercy for so long. Her demands, her guilt trips, the way she used my own sense of duty against me, manipulating me into giving up all I had in order to keep her from breaking apart. Not anymore. I went away with the phone facing down. The truth was, I was done. I'm done with being a continual source of money. I'm tired of being the safety net that kept my family afloat when they couldn't be bothered to forge their own path in life. I'm done with lies and manipulation. They never asked me how I was doing. Never considered the toll it had on me to continually take up the slack. I had been carrying their weight for years, my mother's, my father's, and my brother's. All of them acting as if I owed them something, as if my life was just one long, endless repayment for everything they had done for me. But nobody had ever asked what I needed. Nobody had ever cared for me. And now, I was taking control. But my decision was not unnoticed. The following morning, when I sat in my living room, the silence felt oppressive. The weight of my decision was beginning to sink in. But there were no regrets. No second guessing. I had made the correct decision. Then, my doorbell rang. I was not surprised. It was Jason. I could tell by the way he knocked, demanding and impatient. This was the last person I expected to show up. But it's not surprising at all. I slowly opened the door, keeping my expression neutral. "Emma," he began, his usual arrogant tone gone, replaced by something almost pleading. "You need to listen to me." I did not welcome him in. I stood at the doorway, arms crossed. "I don't need to listen to anything you have to say, Jason." He blinked, taken aback. "No, you don't understand." His tone softened, almost desperate. "Mom's freaking out. Dad's calling me, asking what's going on. They don't know how to fix this? You've cut us all off. You can't just leave us hanging like this." I scoffed and leaned against the doorframe. "Oh, I'm sorry, did you think I was just going to keep enabling you? Keep paying your rent, your bills, and pretending everything was fine? No, Jason, I'm done. I don't care how much you or mom or dad beg. I'm done playing the role of the family ATM." His eyes flared with rage. "You're acting like we've never done anything for you. Like we're all just users, right?" I did not flinch. "Oh, believe me, I know exactly what I've been to you all. I've been a cash machine. A free ride. And I'm tired of it." Jason's face twisted. "You can't just leave us hanging like this. You owe us, Emma." The words stung. But they did not shatter me. They only made me more determined. "I owe you?" I said, my voice firm. "I've given you everything. I paid for your rent, your groceries, your bills, while you just sat there and watched me do it. And you want to talk about owing?" His fist clenched at his side. "You'll regret this. You'll regret cutting us off." I couldn't help laughing. "No, Jason. You'll regret it. Because I'm not the one who needs you anymore." Without waiting for his reaction, I slammed the door in his face. It felt nice. But I sensed that the drama was far from ended. Later that night, my phone vibrated again. I almost did not want to check it, but curiosity gnawed at me. It was from my father. "Dad. Emma, we raised you. Do not assume you can simply walk away from everything we've done for you. You're making an enormous mistake. Come back. We'll chat about it. We will fix this." I could almost sense desperation in his words. I sat there for a time, phone still in hand. I could have ignored it. I may also have blocked him. But I had a better idea. I wasn't simply going to block them. I was going to make them pay for every single lie, every single time they took me for granted. And it was going to start now. I stood up, approached my desk, and opened my laptop. It was time to deliver a message they would never forget. So I started typing. I sat at my desk, staring at my laptop screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I wasn't going to sit back and let them reintegrate into my life as if nothing had happened. I was done being the punching bag. This time, I was in control. I thought about everything I had done for them. All of the payments I'd made, the bailouts. I swallowed my pride and helped them, even though I knew I was the one being drained. No more. Now was their turn to feel the consequences of their conduct. I opened my email and began typing. First, I gathered all of the financial records. Every payment I'd ever made on their invoices. Each bank transfer. Every check I'd sent over the years to compensate for their faults. It was time to remind them of the things they had taken from me. I added a remark to the top of the email. "Here's a detailed summary of everything I've done for you over the years. I'm done being your lifeline. I'll no longer be your ATM, and I'll no longer let you make me feel guilty for choosing myself. Consider this my final invoice. You don't owe me anything anymore, but you will owe yourself the realization of how much I've sacrificed, all because I thought family was supposed to help each other, not drain each other." Then I added the receipts, bills, and payments I'd sent. But it was not the end. Definitely not. I signed on to the family group chat, which used to keep me on edge with their complaints and demands. I browsed through the messages, reading the ones where they said they needed me and guilted me into assisting them. Then I tried something I hadn't done in years. I responded. You all talk a lot about what you've done for me, but you've forgotten how much I've given up for you. And here's the reality check. You never needed me. You just used me. I'm done. This is my last message. Don't ever contact me again. I sent it. The silence that followed was nearly lovely. I slumped back in my chair, feeling the weight of the decision wash over me. For once, there were no more phone calls. No more guilt trips. No more pretending they had any authority over me. They might continue their manipulations, lies, and empty promises. I was free. But just when I thought it was finished, I got one last message. From Jason. You're making a mistake, Emma. You'll regret this. Family sticks together. I smiled to myself. I knew he was only attempting to get under my skin, but this time, it didn't work. Because I didn't need them. I had a life. My freedom. And it was enough. It wasn't the dramatic explosion I had envisioned. It wasn't a great clash. But in its own way, this was much better. I had assumed command without anyone seeing it coming. And the best part? They lost their control over me. As I turned off my phone for the night, a sensation of calm washed over me. I did not have to play their game. I didn't have to continue sacrificing myself for those who didn't value me. It wasn't the revenge I expected. It was quieter. Be more deliberate. And far more satisfying. Now I could finally breathe. And the best part, I could finally live for myself, and that, in the end, was the sweetest victory. Reflection. Wow, what a ride that was, right? It's incredible to think of how much Emma had to endure for so long. But in the end, she gained control of her life. I admire how she refused to let her family's conflict and guilt bring her down. Instead of a massive conflict, she simply cut them off quietly, but with force. Making a scene is not always the best way to exact revenge. It's about reclaiming your life and showing that you're no longer a doormat. But here's the thing, not everyone would have handled it that way. Some could argue that she should have pushed for the relationship. Maybe even give them a second opportunity. Others may believe she made the correct decision by removing them entirely. So what are your thoughts? Do you agree with Emma's decision? Was her silent vengeance satisfying, or overly harsh? Please share your ideas in the comments below. I would love to know what you think. My husband and mother-in-law treated me like a servant, mocking my efforts, demanding obedience, and making me feel invisible. Alex's words cut through the clatter of dishes like a keen scalpel. Alara, bring me some tea now. I halted, my hands dipped in soapy water. Hold on, I'm doing the dishes. What? His tone was incredulous and impatient. Stop that and then bring me the tea right away. Can't you obey simple commands? But, I began, only to be interrupted. What a useless wife you are. Make me some sweet coffee, said another voice. Mrs. Whitmore, my mother-in-law, spoke from the living room. She sat there munching a slice of cake she had grabbed from the fridge, her eyes gleaming with malice. I sighed and looked at the stack of dishes. There are so many. Leave them for later. Just do what we say, useless wife, Alex's voice hissed, each syllable hurting. I was Alara, a 28-year-old working mother whose life felt more like a jail than a home. Married at 23, I had hoped for love and friendship, but instead found myself in the hands of Alex and his domineering mother. Our 4-year-old son was the only bright spot in an otherwise dark existence. We lived in Alex's parents' house, a decision foisted on me under the premise of caring for Mrs. Whitmore after my father-in-law died. Initially, I sympathized with her alleged anguish, but it quickly became evident that I was nothing more than a part in her cruel game of home oppression. Cooking, cleaning, and working just weren't enough. My attempts were treated with derision, and my meals were either left untouched or sharply ridiculed. The stir-fry is so half-hearted, Mrs. Whitmore would remark. Cook it properly from scratch. I'm busy and can only do simple things, I'd say, trying to maintain a calm voice. That's why I hate backtalk from my daughter-in-law, she quipped. Cook from scratch? Why don't you cook? You are a good cook, correct? I risked to react once and soon regretted it. Why would I do housekeeping with you here? She responded coldly and dismissively. Are you out of your mind? Their brutality grew with time, progressing from harsh words to a chilling quiet. They began to entirely disregard me, as if I were a ghost in my own home. My presence, which was previously underestimated, now appeared completely invisible. 5 years passed in this suffocating environment. Alex and I turned 35 and 33 respectively. Our son developed, but the unpleasant atmosphere in the house remained constant. My mother-in-law, now 63, appeared to thrive on my suffering. One evening, as I trudged home from work, A heavy revelation hit me. They saw my existence as meaningless. I was a shadow, unnoticed and unheard. The only voice that acknowledged me was my son's. The idea of losing even that minor recognition was agonizing. When I returned home, I started cooking right away, hoping to lift my spirits. I made mapo tofu, fried chicken, and a stir-fry with bell peppers and pork, attempting to bring some regularity to our dinner. "Bring me the mayo," Alex said unexpectedly, breaking his long silence. "Sure, here you are," I said, handing him the mayonnaise. His first words to me in ages were not thanks or discussion, but rather a command. It was the last straw, the limit of my patience and tolerance. Mrs. Whitmore demanded, "Clean the toilet." "What? Now?" I was shocked. "Yes, now," she demanded, her voice full of hate. I snapped back, unable to suppress my annoyance. "Don't say such a thing while we're eating. It's nasty, just like your heart," she said. Our dispute immediately escalated, with Alex interjecting and demanding that I apologize to his mother. But I refused, standing firm for the first time in years. The conflict reached its climax, and a conclusion formed within me. I needed to get out of this toxic environment, not just for myself, but also for my baby. I returned to my room, my determination stiffening. I downloaded divorce papers, completed them, and slapped them in front of Alex. His amazement was evident, but I felt just icy determination. "I'm filing these," I announced, my voice firm. As I stood there, looking at my husband's puzzled expression, I realized I had finally stepped out of the shadows. It was time to regain my life. The days after I declared my divorce were a blur of frigid stares and stinging remarks, but in the midst of the chaos, I discovered an unexpected sense of freedom. Mrs. Whitmore looked at the food I was serving one evening with distaste. "You call this food? Even a child cooks better." I bit my tongue, concentrating on my son's happy expression. "Eat up, sweetheart. I made your favorite tonight," Alex added in, his voice full of sarcasm. "Oh, playing the perfect mother now, are we? What a joke." I could feel my rage rising, but I held my cool. "I'm just trying to make a nice dinner for our son." Mrs. Whitmore snorted. "Don't act high and mighty. You're just a burden in this house." The tension around the table was apparent. Alex's attempts to insult me grew more intense. "So, Alara, have you thought about how you'll survive after the divorce? You can barely keep a house, let alone your own life." I stared him directly in the eyes. "I have been supporting this family for years. I'm not worried about taking care of myself and our son." His smirk faded somewhat, and a spark of concern appeared on his face. Mrs. Whitmore was quick to intercede. "Don't be absurd. You need us more than we need you." The talk drifted to finances, which they typically avoided. "You do realize that without my salary, this household would crumble," I said to myself rather than to them. Mrs. Whitmore sneered. "We'd manage. We don't need your pity money." But Alex's silence spoke volumes. He understood the truth. They would be in serious financial trouble if I did not provide a living. Their behavior deteriorated during the next few days. Mrs. Whitmore alternated between trying to sweet-talk me into staying and shouting insults when I refused. Alex, on the other hand, appeared confused, his arrogance eroding as the reality of his financial dependency became clear. One afternoon, I overheard a talk between them that chilled me to the core. "She can't just leave us like this," Alex growled. "We need her money." Mrs. Whitmore's response was chilly and calculating. "Do not worry. I have a plan. We'll make her life so unpleasant that she won't want to leave." Hearing their genuine objectives exposed was a revelation. They did not care about me or our son. It was all about power and wealth. That night, as I lay in bed, an idea began to emerge in my head. If they wanted a fight, I'd give them one. But it would not be fought with words or trivial disputes. I'd strike them where it hurts the most, their pride and their pocketbook. The following morning, I began putting my plan into action. I contacted a lawyer, a bright, no-nonsense woman who was highly recommended. "I want a divorce, and I want to make sure they don't get a penny more than they deserve," I informed the woman. She nodded, her eyes bright with determination. "We'll make sure of it. You've been the only breadwinner, correct? We'll make use of that." My resolve got stronger with each passing day. I began documenting everything: insults, financial manipulation, and even little grievances. It was time to turn the tables. It was time to accept the repercussions of their deeds. As I prepared my case, I felt a sense of empowerment. For the first time in years, I felt like I had power over my own fate. The shades of scorn were slowly lifting, revealing a new dawn. As the divorce proceedings began, the mood in the house became more caustic. Yet, with each passing day, My panic faded, replaced by a steely resolve. Mrs. Whitmore decided to try a new strategy one evening. "Alara, dear, why don't we forget all this nasty business? You know we're family." Her comments were insincere. I met her stare unwaveringly. "Family doesn't treat each other the way you've treated me." Alex, who had been silently watching, scoffed. "Oh, playing the victim now? You're not as innocent as you pretend to be." I felt a wave of rage, but I kept my voice composed. "I'm not playing anything, Alex. I'm just no longer willing to be your scapegoat." As is typically the case, the subject turned to finances. "You think you can just take our son and leave? How will you support him?" Alex was skeptical. I grinned with a tiny, confident curl of my lips. "I've been supporting this family for years. I think I can manage." Mrs. Whitmore turned her gaze into a sneer. "You're nothing without us. You'll come crawling back." But their remarks no longer had force over me. I recognized my worth and knew the truth. The following day, I met with my lawyer again. She outlined the strategy clearly. "We'll expose their financial dependency on you. It will play a crucial role in the custody battle and the division of assets." I nodded, feeling vindicated. The law was on my side, and I was prepared to fight back. At home, the tension had reached a boiling point. Mrs. Whitmore's attempts to discredit me got increasingly desperate. "You think you're so smart," she sneered one evening. "But you're just a cold-hearted woman abandoning your family." I stared her directly in the eyes. I'm a woman who's finally standing up for herself." Alex leaped in, his voice full of fury. "You'll regret this. You can't survive without me." However, his threats fell on deaf ears. I was done being intimidated. As the days passed, my preparations for the court battle became more intense. I obtained financial accounts, documented their harsh remarks, and gathered evidence of their negligence. One afternoon, as I was arranging my documents, my kid approached me. "Mom, are we going to be okay?" His voice was soft and hesitant. I drew him into an embrace, feeling a flash of protectiveness. "Yes, sweetheart. We're going to be just fine. We're leaving this place, and we're going to start a new, happy life, just you and me." His arms tightened around me, and I knew I'd made the correct decision. I was fighting not just for myself, but also for my son's future. The court hearing date approached, bringing with it the prospect of impending freedom. I was prepared to confront Alex and Mrs. Whitmore and put an end to their tyranny and emotional abuse. I was ready to take back my life and give my son the peace and happiness he deserved. It was time for justice, and I was determined to see it delivered. The court hearing day arrived, and I was filled with both dread and determination. I felt a sense of surrealism when I sat across from Alex and Mrs. Whitmore in court. This was the moment when everything changed. The proceedings started with frigid formality. Alex's lawyer portrayed him as a dedicated spouse and parent battling under unjust accusations. Mrs. Whitmore played the sorrowful mother-in-law who had been wronged by her ungrateful daughter-in-law. However, their performance was apparent, and their lies were flimsy. When my turn came, I spoke clearly and steadily. "I've been the only provider for this family for years. My husband's unemployment and his mother's manipulative behavior have been continual sources of stress." Alex intervened, his voice tinged with feigned hurt. "Alara, how can you say such things? I've always backed you." I turned to him, my stare steadfast. "Alex, support is more than words. It's about deeds, and your actions have only demonstrated selfishness and harshness." The judge listened closely as I presented my evidence, which included financial accounts, audio recordings of their verbal abuse, and testimony from neighbors who witnessed their behavior. The fact was undeniable. As the evidence accumulated, Alex's facade began to collapse. Mrs. Whitmore's poise shattered, and her innocence slipped away. The courtroom was quiet, the air thick with anxiety. Then came the realization that sealed their doom. My lawyer submitted photos and documentation confirming Alex's adultery and Mrs. Whitmore's clandestine affair with Mr. Harwood, a wealthy neighbor. Murmurs broke out in the courtroom as the photographs of them in compromising postures were shown. Their lie was exposed for all to see. Alex's face became ashen, his eyes wide with surprise. Mrs. Whitmore's face twisted into rage, and her hands trembled. You compromised our privacy," she yelled, her voice shrill. I glanced at her, my voice steady yet forceful. I revealed the truth, which you both had been hiding for far too long." The court shouted for order, but the harm was already done. Their credibility was shattered, and their lies were revealed in the bright light of the courtroom. As the session concluded, the judge's conclusion was apparent. I was given full custody of our son, and a fair distribution of assets was ordered. Alex and Mrs. Whitmore were left with just their destroyed reputations. Walking out of the courtroom, I felt a weight lifted from my shoulders. The years of deception and emotional assault had finally ended. I had confronted my oppressors and emerged victorious. But the finest moment was when my son raced into my arms outside the courthouse, his face beaming with relief and joy. "We did it, Mom," he exclaimed, his voice full of delight. "Yes, we did," I said, holding him close. "We're free now. This is only the beginning for us." As we walked away hand in hand, I realized this was more than simply a personal win. It was a victory for everybody who has ever been made to feel little, helpless, or unworthy. It represented a victory for truth and justice. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one full of optimism and the promise of a better future. The court verdict had an immediate and chaotic impact. The story of Alex and Mrs. Whitmore's deception spread like wildfire, ruining their reputations in our little neighborhood. They could no longer hide behind their facade of respectability. In the days following the verdict, I concentrated on rebuilding my life with my kid, but I couldn't deny the gratification of knowing Alex and Mrs. Whitmore were facing the repercussions of their decisions. One evening, as I was making dinner, I had an unexpected visitor. Mrs. Harwood, Mr. Harwood's wife, appeared, her eyes crimson from unshed tears. "Alara, I've heard about everything. I can't believe what Sylvia, Mrs. Whitmore, did," she exclaimed, her voice breaking. I invited her in and offered a cup of tea. As we sat at the kitchen table, she expressed her sadness. I trusted her as a neighbor and friend. And to think she was having an affair with my husband. Her voice trembled, so I listened and offered words of comfort. Mrs. Whitmore's actions had clearly caused far more damage than she had planned. The next day, I saw Alex in town. He was a shell of his former self, his arrogance replaced with a defeated expression. "Alara, please. Can we speak?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I paused, facing him. "What's there to talk about, Alex?" He fidgeted, unwilling to meet my gaze. I apologize for everything. I didn't understand how much I relied on you and your strength." His apologies, however late, reflected the shift in power. He had lost everything, his dignity, his home, and his family, and in that loss, he had finally admitted his own flaws. Mrs. Whitmore, however, received the greatest criticism. Her affair with Mr. Harwood had not only wrecked her reputation but also resulted in legal problems. Mrs. Harwood sought a divorce and sued her for alienation of affection. I learned of Mrs. Whitmore's dilemma from neighbors. Whispers and tales depicted a lady undone by her own acts. She had become an outsider, rejected by individuals she had previously considered friends. I saw her at the grocery store one day, hurrying through the aisles with downcast eyes. Our paths touched, and for a brief moment, our eyes met. The sight of hatred and defeat in her eyes was undeniable. "You did this to me," she said under her breath as she walked by. I watched Sylvia leave, her figure slowly fading as she hurried away, her eyes filled with resentment. I felt a strange mix of pity for her and vindication for myself. "No, Sylvia," I whispered under my breath. "You did this to yourself." The tides of justice had finally shifted. Everything they had done to me, all the lies, the manipulation, the emotional torment, had come full circle. The consequences of their actions were now irreversible. I could see them struggling, living in the aftermath of the deceit they had carefully cultivated over the years. Their false facade had shattered, and now they were forced to face the reality of what they had become. As I watched them suffer through the consequences of their own making, I felt a sense of calm satisfaction. But it wasn't just about them getting what they deserved. The real reward was in the freedom I had gained. The best form of retribution, I realized, was not in revenge, but in living a life full of peace and strength, free from the toxicity and harmful influence they had cast upon me for so long. My focus shifted back to what truly mattered, the future I was building with my son. We were free now, free from the prison they had trapped me in for all those years. I had broken free, and now, I was living the life I had always dreamed of. This wasn't just a story of revenge or victory, it was a story of liberation. It was a powerful testament to my strength and resilience. I had taken control of my destiny, broken the chains of abuse, and freed myself from the tyranny of their manipulation. As I looked ahead, I knew that the future was bright, and the best was yet to come. I was no longer a prisoner to their cruelty. I was free, and the world was mine to conquer.